on this edition of the program. Good God. Hello and welcome everybody to the Politics program for June 28th, 2024. Oh boy, did I have a lot of big plans for this episode. You guys know I love debates. You know that it's something that I like to study, that I like to really pick apart. We had a live stream. Andrew Heaton came over. I had a whole system. I was recording the debate in another room so I could upload it and get it transcribed, and then we could pull the quotes, the big moments of the debates, and we'd argue about them. I don't know. I think that Trump did this. I think that Biden did that. For not. Because what we saw tonight was nothing short of the worst debate performance in American history. And I really don't know what you would put around it. And I really don't think that it would be close. As I am recording this at 12:35 Eastern Time, I'm watching Chyrons on MSNBC saying that Democrats are in panic and they wonder whether or not Joe Biden should be their nominee. I am watching open discussions on CNN with Democratic mainstays talking about replacing Joe Biden. I am seeing Fox News awash in champagne. So I really couldn't do a post show to it, mostly because I think that it would be better and more edifying for you, not only the listener in real time, but also the historical document, that you should listen to this as it happened. Myself and Andrew Heaton. What will go forward is an unedited version of that. There will be no update, although we would encourage you to head to take politics seriously if you like stuff like this. Sign up at the $3 level, get 2 bonus episodes per week. The bonus episode that came out before the debate was talking about all the warning signs that I was seeing from the Biden campaign that maybe nobody was really running the train. And oh boy, have my priors been confirmed. But yeah, this is just the unedited version of me watching this debacle of a performance by Joe Biden with Andrew Heaton. So if you like it, boy, you're going to get to exquisitely enjoy it. Before we start, though, I do want to give a warning. This is an explicit podcast, so there will be me using curse words. If you normally listen to this with your family in the car, or you are somebody who is sensitive to language, I do my best to make sure that we are a family-friendly product by and large. I was not expecting this to be the product, and yet here we are, and so there we go. But since you're here for analysis, I will give you my last thought before we play. Joe Biden is going to be on the ballot in November. So if you believe that anything else is the case, then I would caution you. Democrats will be in full freak-out mode. They are currently in full freak-out mode. There is no way to look at this as anything other than an absolute immolation, a self-immolation by Joe Biden. Let's remember, Joe Biden picked the date. Joe Biden picked the location. Joe Biden picked the network. Joe Biden picked the moderators. We have never had a debate this early. And so if you are listening to anybody that is saying, it's June, it's the first debate, well then, why is it June? Why did the first debate that just happen? It was a choice. It was a deliberate choice made by the Biden campaign because they didn't like the trajectory of where things were happening up till now. Do I think that Joe Biden is competent? Do I think that Joe Biden should step down? You know, when you get to 81, and I very much hope to, I would imagine that it's, a little like the way that it's in the way that you use it. It comes and it goes. And for Joe Biden, I think it went tonight. There's been a lot of conversation about how he had a cold, but boy, I don't think that was a cold. I think it was what we've seen with our own eyes for the last year. Joe Biden's a different person. On our Wednesday show, we talked about how much he's slowed down from 2012 to 2020 to now. And, you got clips of Joe Biden saying that they beat Medicare. That's a damn sight worse than confusing El Sisi for the president of Mexico. Donald Trump was a C+. He doesn't matter in this particular conversation. He was fine. I don't think he did anything that would disqualify him. I would expect all of the poll numbers to go up. And, the flash poll for CNN had him 67% to 33% for Joe Biden. For the record, a bigger spread than Joe Biden beat Trump by in 2020 by 1 point. Does this mean that the election's over? There is a long time between here and then. But good Lord. I think it's going to be damn near impossible to tell Americans that if they're worried about Joe Biden's age, they shouldn't be. I don't know what he could do. This is an irredeemable point for the Biden team. Because this was the moment. The State of the Union, that was its own thing. Oh, vitality. Let Biden be Biden. This was, and what I will send you into our live stream with, the worst debate performance in American history. And I've watched every presidential debate. I had to do a card game. And so for research, I watched every single televised presidential debate. This is by far the worst. And again, it's not close. And I would say that you go down the list of other debates I've seen, Senate, governor, where you get some kooks on stage. You would have to get deep into that barrel to see something as embarrassing, humiliating, and damaging as what Joe Biden did tonight. Now, there's going to be a lot of spin. Joe Biden was out at a Waffle House after the debate saying it's hard to debate somebody who lies so much. He was at his watch party. Dr. Jill Biden was saying, oh, you did great. You answered all the questions, blah, blah, blah. But the next few days are going to be ugly. The knives are going to be out. And the question now really becomes whether or not anybody on the Democratic side wants to start making noise. Now, there will be a lot of noise for Kamala to be the girl. I don't know whether or not there will be any qualification on whether or not Joe Biden should step down. You know, there will be much more said about this. But those are my thoughts right now. And please enjoy. Again, a historical document. This is the worst debate performance I've ever seen in real time.
We're live from Georgia, a key battleground state in the race for the White House. In just moments, the current U.S. president will debate the former U.S. president as their party's presumptive nominees, a first in American history. We want to welcome our viewers in the United States and around the world to our studios in Atlanta. This is the CNN presidential debate.
This debate is
I'll tell you what, television studios have come a long way since 1960.
Yeah. CNN International, CNN.com, CNN Max, and CNN Espanol. This is a pivotal moment between President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump in their
Whoa, is Tapper rocking a three-piece?
He is.
Each will make his
it's kind of pocket square. Okay.
Yeah, for Tapperoo.
Until Election Day. Good evening, I'm Dana Bash, anchor of CNN's Inside Politics and co-anchor of State of the Union.
I'm Jake Tapper, anchor of CNN's The Lead and co-anchor of State of the Union. Dana and I will co-moderate this evening. Our job is to facilitate a debate between the two candidates tonight. Before we introduce them, we want to share the rules of the debate with the audience at home. Former President Trump will be on the left side of the screen. President Biden will be appearing on the right. A coin toss determined their positions.
By the way, Biden won the coin toss, and he had a choice of either being on the left or right side, or going first or last, and chose the side of the stage and not
When it's
the.
time for a candidate
Sensei,
to
what are the
speak,
benefits
his
to picking the
microphone
left or
will be
right side of the
turned
screen?
on, and his opponent's
Because I have
microphone will
no
be turned
idea.
off.
Like, unless he's
I
decided to.
I don't know either. And the Republican podcast I listened to today, they were saying the best guess is
At the end of the debate,
maybe
each candidate
either
will
it's a
get 2
hearing
minutes
thing
for closing
or
statements.
he just has
there
a side.
There is no studio audience tonight.
That
Pre-written
makes sense,
notes,
actually.
Props or contact with campaign staff are not permitted during the debate. By accepting our invitation to debate, both candidates and their campaigns agreed to accept these rules.
Now, please welcome the 46th
Great suit
President
on Dana
of the United
Bash.
States,
Yeah.
Joe Biden.
Okay, he's walking the right direction. Good job. Good job. Okay. Good point there. Strong. Be right.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Soft spoken.
And
He
please
doesn't look
welcome
juiced
the
up. What's up?
45th President of the United States, Donald Trump.
And these are 2 men after 9 o'clock on the East Coast.
Holy shit! Very aware. This was the number one thing that I said was that TV lighting is different than auditorium
Gentlemen, thanks so
lighting.
much for being here.
And I
Let's
do think
begin
that one of the things
debate,
that people
and
might
let's
take
start
from
with
this
the
is
issue
that they're just
voters
fucking old. These
consistently
dudes are
say
just old.
Is their top concern the economy? President Biden, inflation has slowed, but prices remain high. Since you took office, the price of essentials has increased. For example, a basket of groceries that cost $100 then now costs more than $120. And typical home prices have jumped more than 30%. What do you say to voters who feel they are worse off under your presidency than they were under President Trump?
We got to take a look at what I was left when I became president. What Mr.
Good
Trump
God!
We had an economy that was in free fall. The pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying. All he
His
said
voice
was
sounds
not that
terrible.
serious. Just inject a little bleach into your arm. You'll be all right. The economy collapsed. There were no jobs. Unemployment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible. And so what we had to do is try to put things back together again. And that's exactly what we began to do. We created 15,000 new jobs. We brought out a position where we have 800,000 new manufacturing jobs. But there's more to be done. There's more to be done. Working class people are still in trouble. I come from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I come of a household where the kitchen table, if the things weren't able to be met during the month, it was a problem. The price of eggs, the price of gas, the price of housing, the price of a whole range of things. That's why I'm working so hard to make sure I deal with those problems. And we're going to make sure that we reduce the price of housing. We're going to make sure we build 2 million new units. We're going to make sure we cap rents so corporate greed can't take over. The combination, what I was left with in corporate greed, is the reason why we're in this problem right now. In addition to that, we're in a situation where if you take a look at all that was done in his administration, he didn't do much at all. By the time he left, things were in chaos, literally chaos. And so we put things back together. We created, I said, those jobs. We make sure we had a situation where we brought down the price of prescription drugs, which is a major issue for many people, to $15 for a insulin shot as opposed to $400. No senior has to pay more than $200 for any drug.
He is memorized to the fucking hilt right now.
And the situation is we're going to make that available to everybody, to all Americans. So we're working to bring down the price around the kitchen table, and that's what we're going to get done.
Thank you. President Trump?
We have the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have never done so well. Everybody was amazed by it. Other countries were copying us. We got hit with COVID, and when we did,
the China virus,
spent the money necessary so we wouldn't end up in a Great Depression, the likes of which we had in 1929. By the time we finished, so we did a great job. We got a lot of credit for the economy, a lot of credit for the military, and no wars, and so many other things. Everything was rocking good. But the thing we never got the credit for, and we should have, is getting us out of that COVID mess. He created mandates that was a disaster for our country. But other than that, we had given them back a country where the stock market actually was higher than pre-COVID, and nobody thought that was even possible.
Biden didn't make any COVID
The only
mandates.
jobs he created are for illegal immigrants and bounce back jobs, a bounce back from the COVID. He has not done a good job. He's done a poor job, and inflation's killing our country. It is absolutely killing us.
Thank you,
And he
President
punched
Biden.
out?
Well, look, the greatest economy in the world. He's the only one who thinks that, I think. I don't know anybody else who thinks he had the greatest economy in the world. And, you know, the fact of the matter is that we find ourselves in a situation where his economy, he rewarded the wealthy. He had the largest tax cut in American history, $2 trillion. He raised a deficit larger than any president has in any one term. He's the only president other than Herbert Hoover who's lost more jobs than he had when he began, since Herbert Hoover. The idea that he did something that was significant.
I knew Herbert Hoover. Hoover was a great man.
When he was president, they were still killing people in Afghanistan. He didn't do anything about that. When he was president, we were still finding ourselves in a position where
negotiate the
you
end of
had
the war
a
in
notion
Afghanistan.
that we were this safe country. The truth is, I'm the only president this century that doesn't have this decade, that doesn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world like he did.
President Trump, I want to follow up if I can.
Am I allowed to respond to him?
Well, I'm going to ask you a follow-up. You can do whatever you want with the minute that we give you. I want to follow up. You want to impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. How will you ensure that that doesn't drive prices even higher?
Not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cause countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China and many others, in all fairness to China. It's going to just force them to pay us a lot of money, reduce our deficit tremendously, and give us a lot of power for other things. But he made a statement. The only thing he was right about is I gave you the largest tax cut in history. I also gave you the largest regulation cut in history. That's why we had all the jobs. And the jobs went down, and then they bounced back, and he's taking credit for bounce back jobs. You can't do that. He also said he inherited 9% inflation. Now, he inherited almost no inflation, and it stayed that way for 14 months. And then it blew up under his leadership because they spent money like a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing, and they don't know what they were doing. It was the worst, probably the worst administration in history. There's never been. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. He got out. It was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country's life.
Biden opened the door in Afghanistan, and he got hit by
under
it.
both of your administrations, the national debt soared to record highs.
And Trump didn't even hit him as hard as he should have.
According to a new nonpartisan analysis, President Trump, your administration approved $8.4 trillion in new debt, while so far, President Biden, you've approved $4.3 trillion in new debt. So, former President Trump, many of the tax cuts that you signed into law are set to expire next year. You want to extend them and go even further, you say. With the U.S. facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt, why should top earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about any other country. But we spurred
Trump
that
taking
tax
credit for the
spurred.
fact
now,
that the economy is still
when
strong.
we cut the
That's actually
taxes,
smart
as
by
an
him,
example,
'cause
the
Biden's gonna
corporate
claim
tax
that.
was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that. We took in more revenue with much less tax, and companies were bringing back trillions of dollars back into our country. The country was going like never before, and we were ready to start paying down debt. We were ready to start using the liquid gold right under our feet, the oil and gas right under our feet. We were going to have something that nobody else has had. We got hit with COVID. We did a lot to fix it. I gave him an unbelievable situation with all of the therapeutics and all of the things that we came up with. We gave him something
vaccines.
great. Remember, more people died under his administration, even though we had largely fixed it.
His eye
More
looks
people
weird,
died under
Biden.
his administration than our administration, and we were right in the middle of it, something which a lot of people don't like to talk about. But he had far more people dying in his administration. He did the mandate, which is a disaster, mandating it. The vaccine went out. He did a mandate on the vaccine, which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine. And he did a very poor job.
He didn't talk a lot about tax policy.
And I will tell you, not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States anymore. We're like a third world nation between weaponization of his election, trying to go after his political opponent, all of the things he's
Trump
done. We've
opens
become like a
weaponization,
third world nation. And
trying
it's a
to gird
shame.
against the felon.
The damage he's done to our country. And I'd love to ask him, and will, why he allowed millions of people to come in here from
so
prisons,
now he's going
jails,
after
and mental
Biden. This is
institutions
dangerous. This is
to come
not
into
crumply.
our country and destroy our country.
President Trump, we will get to immigration later in this block. President Biden, I want to give you an opportunity to respond to this question about the national debt.
He had the largest national debt of any president in a 4-year period, number one. Number two, that $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. I mean, billionaires in America. And what's happening?
1,000
They're in
trillionaires.
a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 million, billion dollars, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, childcare, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system,
my God.
making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with
God.
the with the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden.
We
President
finally beat Medicare.
He's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare.
God.
Because all of these people are coming in. They're putting them on Medicare. They're putting them on Social Security. They're going to destroy Social Security. This man is going to single-handedly destroy Social Security. These millions and millions of people coming in, they're trying to put them on Social
This
Security.
is the
He will wipe
apocalypse
out
for Biden.
Social Security. He will wipe out Medicare. So he was right in the way he finished that sentence. And it's a shame. What's happened to our country in the last 4 years is not to be believed. Foreign countries, I'm friends with a lot of people. They cannot believe what happened to the United States of America. We're no longer respected. They don't like us. We give them everything they want, and they think we're stupid. They think we're very stupid people. what we're doing for other countries, and they do nothing for us. What this man has done is absolutely criminal.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
This is the first presidential election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. This morning,
So this is a Biden power punch.
On yet another
If he's going to
abortion
come back,
case,
it's right here.
temporarily
Although
allowing
I almost wonder
emergency
whether or not the
abortions
cake is
to
baked
continue in Idaho
right now.
despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion
Big
pills.
answer for Trump.
They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion pill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And if you look at this whole question that you're asking, complex but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and
complex, but
everybody
not
wanted
really
to get it back
complex.
to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives, everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that everybody wanted. Now, 10 years ago or so, they started talking about how many weeks and how many this, getting into other things. But every legal scholar throughout the world, the most respected, wanted it brought back to the states. I did that. Now the states are working it out. If you look at Ohio, it was a decision that was, an end result that was a little bit more liberal than you would have thought. Kansas, I would say the same thing. Texas is different.
He's taking
Florida
all
is
these
different.
talking points
but
off
they're
of
all making their own
Biden's ledger
decisions
right now. He
And
knows
right
that
now,
Biden is going to
the
go to these
states
special
control it.
elections.
That's the vote of the people. Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart. But you have to get elected also. And because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected. The problem they have is they're radical because they will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after birth. After birth, if you look at the former governor of Virginia, he was willing to do this. He said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby. What happened is we brought it back to the states, and the country is now coming together on this issue. It's been a great thing.
Thank you. President Biden?
It's been a terrible thing, what you've done. The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided, supported Roe. And that's this idea that they're all against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea that states are able to do this is a little like
This is
saying
supposed to be
we're
his
going
power
to turn
punch.
civil rights back to the states, let each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in. They talk about that, but here's the deal: there's a lot of young women are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses.
What is happening?
Brothers and sisters, it's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. And they try to arrest them when they cross state lines.
Thank you.
There have been many young women murdered by the same people he allows to
fucking
come
just
across
brought
our
up
border.
migrant
We have
crime
a
for
border
no
that's the
fucking
most dangerous
reason.
place anywhere in the world. Consider the most
would he
dangerous
bring up
place
migrant
anywhere in
crime
the
for
world.
no reason?
And he opened it up, and these killers are coming into our country, and they are raping and killing women. And it's a terrible thing. As far as the abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting. In many cases, it's frankly a very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the
didn't they do
people,
something,
which is
Biden, with
what
whatever he had for the
everybody
State of the
wanted,
Union address?
including the
don't
founders,
know,
if they
dude.
knew about this issue, which frankly they didn't. But they would have.
Just look at
Everybody
the
wanted brought
facial,
back. Ronald
like,
Reagan wanted it
movements.
brought back.
Like,
He wasn't
one is
able to get
alive
it.
and one is not.
Everybody wanted it brought back, and many presidents had tried to get it back. I was the one to do it. And again, this gives it the vote of the people, and that's where they wanted it. Every legal scholar wanted it that way.
Staying on the topic of abortion, President Biden, 7 states.
This is the one he's winning.
This is the same topic. 7 states have no legal restrictions on how far into a pregnancy a woman can obtain an abortion. Do you support any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
I supported Roe v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters. The first time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time is between between the woman and the state. The idea that the politicians, that the founders wanted the politicians to be the ones making decisions about women's health is ridiculous. That's the last. No politician should be making that decision. A doctor should be making those decisions. That's how it should be run. That's what you're going to do. And if I'm elected, I'm going to restore Roe v. Wade.
Why don't you?
He can take the life of the baby in the 9th month and even after birth, because some states, Democrat run, take it after birth. Again, the former governor of Virginia, put the baby down, then we decide what to do with it. So he's
stapling
willing
him to,
as we say, rip the baby out of the womb
somebody
in the
give me
9th
the guy
month
that
and
Young
kill
can
the
beat.
baby. Nobody wants that to happen, Democrat or
Not
Republican.
Tim
Nobody
Kaine.
wants it to happen.
Trump doesn't remember him either. The
That
former
is simply
DNC head.
not true. That Roe v. Wade does not provide for that. That's not the circumstance. Only if a woman's life is in danger, she's going to die. That's the only circumstance in which that can happen. But we are not for late-term abortion, period. Period, period.
Under Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion.
You're talking about late-term
You can do
abortion.
whatever
You've
you want,
lost this
depending on the
conversation.
state. You can do whatever you want. We don't think that's a good thing. We
He
think
pinned
it's
you
a
down
radical
on late-term
thing.
abortion.
We think
You
the
should be talking
Democrats are
about
the radicals,
women
not
who
the
had atopic
Republicans.
pregnancies.
51 years, that was the law. 51 years, constitutional scholarship said it was the right way to go. 51 years, and it was taken away because this guy put very conservative
waking up
members
now.
on the Supreme Court. He takes credit for taking it away. What's he going to do? What's he going to do, in fact, if the MAGA Republicans, he gets elected,
All right, Biden
and the
on
MAGA
offense.
Republicans control the Congress, and they pass a universal ban on abortion, period, across the board at 6 weeks or 7 or 8 or 10 weeks, something very, very conservative. Is he going to sign that bill? I'll veto it. He'll sign it.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the issue of immigration and border security. President Biden,
Trump tried to
a
come back.
record number of migrants.
No, it
have
wasn't
illegally
Northam. It was the
crossed southern
former
border on your watch.
The former
Overwhelming
governor.
border
They can't
states
run for
and
re-election in
overburdening
Virginia.
cities such as
It was
New
the
York and
former governor,
Chicago,
the
and in
former
some
head of the
cases causing
DNC.
real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve
Terry
this
McAuliffe.
crisis?
That's it.
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. Significantly, by the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position. In addition to that, we found ourselves in a situation where, when he was president, he was
Biden on defense.
separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families were separated. That's not the right way to go. What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we can do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
Hey,
President Trump?
should be drinking.
I really
just so
don't know
you
what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look,
God.
we had the safest border in the history of our country. The border, all he had to do was leave it. All he had to do was leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our country to people that are from prisons, people that are from mental institutions, insane asylum, terrorists. We have the largest number of terrorists coming into our country right now, all terrorists.
Faster
all
Trumps get
over
to
the world,
remain in
not just
Mexico, the
South
better
America,
off this
all
answer
over
is
the
for
world.
him.
They come from the Middle East, everywhere. All over the world, they're pouring in. And this guy just left it open. And he didn't need legislation because I didn't have legislation. I said, close the border. We had the safest border in history. In that final couple of months of my presidency, we had, according to Border Patrol, who is great, and by the way, who endorsed me for president, but I won't say that, but they endorsed me for president. Landon, just speak to him.
I figured it out.
Look, we had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border in history. There's never been anything like it. And people are dying all over the place, including the people that are coming up in
Thank you,
caravans.
President Trump. President Biden?
The only terrorist who's done anything crossing the border is one who came along and killed 3, under his administration, killed an Al-Qaeda person come in his administration, killed 3 American soldiers, killed 3 American soldiers. That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying that no terrorist ever got through, but the idea they're emptying their prisons, we're welcoming these people.
The amount of
That's simply not
Pepto-Bismol
true.
going
There's no
through the
data
Democratic
to
National
support what he
headquarters
said.
at this moment.
Once again, he's exaggerating.
Gavin
he's
Newsom
lying.
warming up in the bullpen.
President Trump, staying on the topic of immigration, you've said that you're going to carry out, quote, the largest domestic deportation operation in American history, unquote. Does that mean that you will deport every undocumented immigrant in America, including those who have jobs, including those whose spouses are citizens,
This is
and
where the
including those who
GOP
have lived here for
complains that
decades? And if so,
that the
how
questions
will you do
are
it?
a little
Just 1
shaded.
second. He said we killed 3 people. The people we killed are al-Baghdadi and Soleimani, the 2 greatest terrorists, biggest terrorists anywhere in the world. And it had a huge impact on
turning this
everything, not just
question
border, on everything.
More confused about it.
He's the one that killed people with the bad water, including hundreds of thousands of people dying and also killing our citizens when they come in. We are living right now in a rat's nest. They're killing our people in New York, in California, in every state in
Laken
the union.
Riley,
because we
Laken
don't have
Riley,
borders
died in
anymore.
Georgia.
Every
Say
state
Laken
is now a
Riley.
border. And because of his ridiculous, insane, and very stupid policies, people are coming in and they're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen. We call it migrant crime. I call it Biden migrant crime. They're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen before. And you're reading it like these 3 incredible young girls over the last few days. One of them, I just spoke to the mother, and they just had the funeral for this girl, 12 years old. This is horrible what's taken place. What's taken place in our country, we're literally an uncivilized country now. He doesn't want it to be. He just doesn't know. He opened the borders. Nobody's ever seen anything like. And we have to get a lot of these people out, and we have to get them out fast because they're going to destroy our country. Just take a look at where they're living. They're living in luxury hotels.
It looks like he's
in New York City and other places.
CNN
Our
cut away.
veterans are
Does
on
it
the
look that
street.
bad?
They're dying because he doesn't care about our veterans. He doesn't care. He doesn't like the military at all, and he doesn't care about our veterans. Nobody been worse. I had the highest approval rating for veterans taking care of the VA.
Laken Riley,
He has the worst.
stay on
He's
migrant
gotten rid of
crime.
all
You're
the
winning
things
on
that I
migrant
approved,
crime.
Choice that I got through Congress, all of the different things I approved, they abandoned. We had by far the highest, and now it's down in less than half because he's done all these great things that we did. And I think he did it just because I approved it, which is crazy. But he has killed so many people at our border by allowing all of these people to come in. And it's a very sad day in America.
President Biden, you have
I
the
think
mic.
I'm
Every
okay with
single thing
Jake
he said
Tapper
is a
just
lie.
openly helping Biden
Every
at this
single
point,
one.
like having
For
a
example,
handicap in
veterans
golf.
are a hell of a lot better off since I passed the PACT Act. 1 million of them now have insurance, and their families have it. Their families have it because what happened, whether it was Agent Orange or burn pits, they're all being covered now. And his group opposed that. We're also in a situation where there's great respect for veterans. My son spent a year in Iraq, living right next to one of those burn pits, came back with stage 4 glioblastoma. I was recently in France for D-Day, and I spoke all about those heroes that died. I went to the World War I cemetery he refused to go to. He was standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker. You're the loser.
President Trump?
God.
First of all, that was a made-up quote, suckers and losers. They made it up. It was in a third-rate magazine that's failing, like many of these magazines. He made that up. He put it in commercials. We've notified him. We had 19 people that said I didn't say it. And think of this. Who would say I'm at a cemetery or I'm talking about our veterans? Because nobody's taking better care. I'm so glad this came up, and he brought it up. There's nobody that's taken better care of our soldiers than I have. To think that I would, in front of generals and others, say suckers and losers. We have 19 people that said it was never said by me. It was made up by him, just like Russia was made up, just like the 51 intelligence agents are made up, just like the new thing with the 16 economists are talking. It's the same thing. 51 intelligence agents said that the laptop was Russia disinformation. It wasn't. That came from his son, Hunter. It wasn't Russia disinformation. He made up the suckers and losers, so he should apologize to me right now.
4-star general standing to your side who was on your staff who said you said it, period. That's number one. And number two, the idea that I have to apologize to you for anything along the line. We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history. American history.
He's not going to
And
win
they
that.
now are in their family. The only sacred
military
obligation we have
people.
as a country is to care for our veterans when they come home and their families and equip them when they go to war. That's what we're doing. That's what the VA is doing now. They're doing more for veterans than ever before in our history.
All right, thank you so much.
Let's move to the topic of foreign policy. I want to begin with Russia's war against Ukraine, which is now in its third year. Former President Trump, Russian President Vladimir Putin says he'll only end this war if Russia keeps the Ukrainian territory it has already claimed and Ukraine abandons its bid to join NATO. Are Putin's terms acceptable to you?
First of all, our veterans and our soldiers can't stand this guy. They can't stand him. They think he's the worst commander-in-chief, if that's what you call him, that we've ever had. They can't stand him. So let's get that straight. And they like me more than just about any of them. And that's based on every single bit of information. As far as Russia and Ukraine, if we had a real president, the president that knew, that was respected by Putin, he would have never invaded Ukraine. A lot of people are dead right now, much more than people know. You know, they talk about numbers. You can double those numbers, maybe triple those numbers. He did nothing to stop it. In fact, I think he encouraged Russia from going in. I'll tell you what happened. He was so bad with Afghanistan. It was such
He's
a
not playing America
horrible,
first. He's playing the
most embarrassing moment in the history of our country.
Yes,
that
that's
when
his
Putin
thing.
watched
Weird.
that and he saw the incompetence that he should
He
should
said
have fired
in,
those generals like I fired the
fundraising
one
that
that
he
you
would
mentioned.
have nuked
And so he's got
Moscow.
no love lost. But he should have
Great.
fired those generals. No general got fired for the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country,
It's Afghanistan.
where we left billions of dollars of equipment
what's
behind.
that?
We
Who's
lost
running
13
in front of the
beautiful
camera?
soldiers, and 38 soldiers were obliterated. And by the way, we left people behind, too. We left American citizens behind. When Putin saw that, he said, you know what? I think we're going to go in and maybe take this was his dream. I talked to him about it, his dream. The difference is he never would have invaded Ukraine. Never. Just like Israel would have never been invaded in a million years by Hamas. You know why? Because Iran was broke with me. I wouldn't let anybody do business with them. They ran out of money. They were broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for anything. No money for terror. That's why you had no terror at all during my administration. This place, the whole world is blowing up under him.
That's
President Biden?
probably the strongest
Never
kitchen
heard so
table
much
argument he
malarkey in my
has.
whole life. Look, the fact of the matter is that we're in a situation where, let's take the last point first. Iran attacked American troops, caused brain damage for a number of these troops, and he did nothing about it. Recently, not when he was president. They attacked. He said they're just having headaches. That's all it is. He didn't do a thing when the attack took place, number one. Number two, we got over 100,000 Americans and others out of Afghanistan during that airlift. Number three, we found ourselves in a situation where, if you take a look at what Trump did in Ukraine, this guy told Trump, do whatever you want, and do whatever you want. And that's exactly what Trump did. To Putin,
Confuse Trump and Putin.
Do whatever you want. And he went in. And listen to what he said when he went in. He was going to take Kyiv in 5 days, remember? Because it's part of the old Soviet Union. That's what he wanted to reestablish, Kyiv. And he, in fact, didn't do it at all. He wasn't able to get it done. And they've lost thousands and thousands of troops, 500,000 troops.
President Trump,
I
as
never
come back
said
to you
that.
for 1 minute, I just want to go back to my original question, which is, are Putin's terms acceptable to you? Keeping the territory in Ukraine.
Acceptable. No, they're not acceptable. But look, this is a war that never should have started. If we had a leader in this war, he led everybody along. He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given $200 billion. That's a lot of money. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that Zelensky comes to this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman ever. And I'm not knocking him. I'm not knocking anything. I'm only saying the money that we're spending on this war, and we shouldn't be spending, it should have never happened. I will have that war settled between Putin and Zelensky as president-elect before I take office on January 20th. I'll have that war settled. People being killed so needlessly, so stupidly. And I will get it settled, and I'll get it settled fast before I take office.
President Biden, you have a minute.
The fact is that Putin is a war criminal. He's killed thousands and thousands of people. And he has made one thing clear. He wants to reestablish what was part of the Soviet Empire, not just a piece. He wants all of Ukraine.
He wants
That's what
the
he
Russian
wants.
Empire,
And
not
then
the
you
Soviet
think he'll
Union.
stop there? Do you think he'll stop when if he takes Ukraine? What do you think happens to Poland? What do you think of Belarus? What do you think happens to those NATO countries? And so if you want a war, you ought to find out what he's going to do, because
Belarus,
if
yeah.
in fact he does what he says
Friendly.
and walks away. And by the way, all that money we give Ukraine are from weapons we make here in the United States. We give them the weapons, not the money at this point.
It's a jobs
And
plan.
and our NATO allies have produced as much funding for Ukraine as we have. That's why we're strong.
He might not
Thank
make
you.
it past
Moving
the
on
first
to the
commercial
Middle
break.
East.
I'm not going to drink
In
the whiskey,
October,
but I am going to
Hamas
hold it.
attacked Israel, killing more than 1,000 people and taking hundreds of hostages. Among those held and thought to still be alive are 5 Americans.
Again, this is
Israel's
another Biden on
response has
defense.
killed thousands of Palestinians and created a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. President Biden, you've put forward a proposal to resolve this conflict, but so far Hamas has not released the remaining hostages, and Israel
just
is
look at his
continuing its
face.
military offensive in Gaza.
What is
so
happening?
What additional leverage will you use to get Hamas
Close your
and
fucking
Israel
mouth,
to end the war?
dude.
You have 2 minutes.
Number one, everyone from the United Nations Security Council, straight through to the G7, to the Israelis and Netanyahu himself, have endorsed the plan I put forward. Endorsed the plan I put forward, which has 3 stages to it. The first stage is trade the hostages for a ceasefire. Second phase is a ceasefire with additional conditions. The third phase is the end of the war. The only one who wants the war to continue is Hamas, number one. They're the only ones standing out. We're still pushing hard to get them to accept. In the meantime, what's happened?
The
In
jihadist
Israel, we're trying
force
say
wants to fight to the
I've
death.
denied
Shock.
Israel was 2,000-pound bombs. They don't work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of innocent people. We're providing Israel with all the weapons they need and when they need them. And by the way, I'm the guy that organized the world against Iran when they had a full-blown intercontinental ballistic missile attack on Israel. No one was hurt. No one Israeli was accidentally killed, and it just stopped. We saved Israel. We are the biggest producer of support for Israel of anyone in the world. And so they're 2 different things. Hamas cannot be allowed to be continued. We continue to send our experts and our intelligence people as to how they can get Hamas like we did bin Laden. You don't have to do it. And by the way, they've been greatly weakened, Hamas, greatly weakened, and they should be. They should be eliminated. But you've got to be careful for using certain weapons among population centers.
Just going back to Ukraine for 1 second. We have an ocean separating us. The European nations together have spent $100 billion, or maybe more than that, less than us. Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. The Secretary General of NATO said Trump did the most incredible job I've ever seen. They wouldn't have any. They were going out of business. We were spending
That's
almost
the face he should have.
100% of
Yes,
that money.
the smile.
the
Hey,
smile,
This guy
yep.
smile.
He didn't do that. He's getting all. You got to ask these people to put up the money. We're over $100 billion more spent, and it has a bigger impact on them because of location, because we have an ocean in between. You got to ask them. As far as Israel and Hamas, Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one that wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
President Biden, you have a minute.
I've never heard so much foolishness. This is a guy who wants to get out of NATO. You're going to stay in NATO? He's going to pull out of NATO. The idea that our strength lies in our alliances as well. It may be a big ocean, but we're ever able to avoid a war in Europe, a major war in Europe? What happens if, in fact, you have Putin continue to go into NATO? We have an Article 5 agreement. Attack on one is attack on all. You want to start the nuclear war he keeps talking about, go ahead. Let Putin go in and control Ukraine and then move on to Poland and other places. See what happens then.
In a
He has
different
no idea
Biden,
what
this
he's
is a
talking
really
about.
strong
And by the
answer.
way, I got 50 other
If this
nations
were a
around the world
transcript, he would
to
be doing
support
fine.
Ukraine,
It's just the
including
delivery
Japan
that's
and South
horrible.
Korea, because they understand
It's
that
monotone,
this
it's mumbly,
kind of
it doesn't
dislocation
arrive at
has
any
a serious
like,
threat to the whole
emphasis
world peace.
at any point.
No major war in Europe
I
has
can't
ever been able
remember
to
what he
contain
said
this
5
to
seconds after he said it.
President Trump, just to follow up, would you support the creation of an independent Palestinian state in order to achieve peace in the region?
I'd have to see, but before we do that, the problem we have is that we spend all the money. So they kill us on trade. I made great trade deals with the European nations because if you add them up, they're about the same size economically. Their economy is about the same size as the United States. And they were no cars, they don't want anything that we have, but we're supposed to take their cars, their food, their everything, their agriculture. I changed that. But the big thing I changed is they don't want to pay. And the only reason that he can play games with NATO is because I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. I said, and he's right about this.
Do the smile,
I
Biden.
said, no, I'm not going to support NATO if you don't pay. They asked me that question. Would you guard us against Russia at a very secret meeting of the 28 states at that time, nations at that time? And they said, no, if you don't pay, I won't do that. And you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing in the next day and the next months. But now we're in the same position. We're paying everybody's bills.
Let's turn to the issue of democracy.
So
Former
totally
President
sidestepped
Trump,
a
I
two-state
wanna ask you
solution
about January
answer,
6th,
which is
2021.
probably
After
effective.
you rallied your supporters that day, some of them stormed the Capitol to stop the constitutionally mandated counting
All right,
of electoral
Trump on
votes.
defense.
As president, you swore an oath to, quote, preserve, protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath
The longer he
through your
spends on
actions
this,
and inaction on January 6th, and worry
worse
that
he
you'll
is.
do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes
he
ever.
prepped on this
we
one.
had the lowest regulations ever. On January 6th, we were respected all over the world. All over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people. What happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership is horrible, including weaponization, which I'm sure at some point you'll be talking about, where he goes after his political opponent because he can't beat him fair and square.
You have 80 seconds left.
So
my question
totally
was, what do you
sidestepped
say
it.
to those voters
That is
who
a
believe
well-prepared
that you
answer
violated your
that was delivered,
constitutional
and now
oath
it's going to
through
put
your
it
actions
totally
and
on Biden to
inaction
What was the-
prosecute January
what was the
6th.
question that precipitated?
January
and worry that
6th,
you'll do
go.
it again.
Well,
Oh,
I didn't
yeah.
say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically. And Nancy Pelosi, if you just watched the news from 2 days ago, on tape to her daughter, who's a documentary filmmaker, they say, but she's saying, oh, no, it's my responsibility. I was responsible for this. Because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them down. And the mayor in writing, by the way, the mayor, in writing, turned it down, the mayor of D.C. They turned it down. I offered 10,000 because I could see, I had virtually nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech. I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there on January 6th. They're going to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it, too, and you could feel it. And I said, they ought to have some National Guard or whatever. And I offered it to her. And she now admits that she turned it down. And it was the same day she was, I don't know, she can't be very happy with her daughter because it made her into a liar. She said, I take full responsibility for January 6th.
President Biden?
Look, he encouraged those folks to go up to Capitol Hill. Number one. I sat in the dining room off the Oval Office. He sat there for 3 hours watching, begging, being begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues on the Republican side as well to do something, to call for a stop, to end it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and great patrons of America. In fact, he says he'll now forgive them for what they've done. They've been convicted. He says he wants to commute their sentences and say that no. But he went to every single court in the nation. I don't know how many cases, scores of cases, including the Supreme Court. And they said, no, this guy is responsible for doing
blister
what
him on this,
was
dude.
done. He did do a damn thing. And these people should be in jail. And they should be the ones who are being held accountable. And he wants to let them all out. And now he says if he loses again, such a whiner that he is, that it could be a bloodbath.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
What they've done to some people that are so innocent.
Oh, God, and then the
You ought to
turn.
be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed the lives of so many people. When they ripped down Portland, when they ripped down many other cities. You go to Minnesota, Minneapolis, what they've done there with the fires all over the city. If I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city would have been destroyed. When you look at all of they took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard that. They saw them coming, and they left immediately.
He's
What he
fucking well
said
prepared.
about
This is
this
the
whole
most well
subject,
prepared I've
he's
ever
so
seen
off.
Trump. He's
Peacefully
turning it to
patriotic.
the
One other
exact
thing.
things he should.
The Unselect Committee, which is basically two horrible Republicans that are all gone now, out of office, and Democrats, all Democrats, they destroyed and deleted all of the information they found because they found out we were right. We were
Look
right.
at his face.
And they
He
deleted
looks like
and
he's
destroyed
guilty.
all of the information. They should
Biden,
go
he's
to
looking
jail for
down.
that. If a Republican did that, they'd go to jail.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a minute.
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right
Yeah,
now.
first
And the fact
time.
of the matter is,
44 minutes in.
what he's telling you is simply not true. The fact is that there was no effort on his part to stop what was going on up in Capitol Hill. And all those people, every one of those who were convicted, deserves to be convicted. The idea that they didn't kill somebody, just went in and broke down doors, broke the windows, occupied offices, turned over desks,
Some of them
turned
didn't
them
go
over
into the building.
statues. The idea that those people are patriots, come on. When I asked him the first two debates we had, first time around, I said, will you denounce the Proud Boys? He said, no, I'll tell them to stand by. The idea he's refusing, will you denounce these guys? Will you denounce the people we're talking about now? Will you denounce the people who attacked that Capitol? What are you going to do?
I'm going to give you a minute, President Trump, for a follow-up question I have. After a jury convicted you of 34 felonies last month, you said if reelected, you would, quote, have every right to go after, unquote, your political opponents. You just talked about members of the Select Committee on January 6th going to jail. Your main political opponent is standing on stage.
Now
with
we're
you
on to
tonight.
fucking,
Can you
we're on to
clarify
political
exactly what it
persecution.
means about you feeling you have every right to go
Power
after
play
your
is
political
expired.
opponents?
Well, I said my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again, because right now it's a failing nation. My retribution is going to be success. But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon at a very high level. His son is convicted, going to be convicted probably numerous other times. Should have been convicted before, but his Justice Department let the statute
This
of
is
limitations lapse. on the
dangerous
most
territory
important
for Trump.
things. But he could be a
Because him
convicted
defending his
felon
son
as
was
soon
the
as he
most
gets out of
sympathetic
office.
Biden.
Joe could be a convicted felon with all of the things that he's done. He's done horrible things. All of the death caused at the border, telling the Ukrainian people that we're going to want $1 billion or you change the prosecutor. Otherwise, you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said that, that's quid pro quo. That we're not going to do anything. We're not going to give you $1 billion unless you
This is a
change
very
your
odd
prosecutor
take on
having
that.
to do
He's
with his
saying
son.
you could be a felon
This
too.
man is a criminal.
Yeah, number one,
This man,
yeah.
you're lucky. You're lucky. I did nothing wrong. We'd have a system that was rigged and disgusting.
there you
I
go.
did nothing wrong.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, I'm coming right to you, sir. You want to respond? Go ahead. I'll give you a minute to respond.
The idea that
There
I
we
did
go.
anything wrong relative to what you're talking about is outrageous. It's simply a lie, number one. Number two, the idea that you have a right to seek retribution against any American just because you're president is wrong. It's simply wrong. No president's ever spoken like that before. No president in our history has spoken like that before. Number three,
He was
the
president.
crimes that you are still charged with. And think of all the civil penalties you have. How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the night
Porn star
while your
on the
wife
bingo
was
card.
pregnant? I mean, what are you talking about? You have the morals of an alley cat.
Give you a minute, sir.
I didn't have sex with a porn star, number one. Number two, that was a case that was started and moved. They moved a high-ranking official, a DOJ, into the Manhattan DA's office to start that case. That case is going to be appealed and won. We had a very terrible judge, a horrible judge, Democrat. The prosecutor were all high-ranking Democrats, appointed people, and both the civil and the criminal. He basically went after his political opponent because he thought it was going to damage me. But when the public found out about these cases, because they understand it better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are. But when they found out about these cases, you know what they did? My poll numbers went up, way up. You know that because you're reporting it. And we took in more money in the last 2 weeks than we've ever taken in the history of any campaign. I don't think any campaign has ever taken. Hundreds of millions of dollars came pouring in.
It looks like he's hearing this shit for the first time.
And it's a guy that's after his political opponent because he can't win fair and square.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, quote, Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans are determined to destroy American democracy. Do you believe that the tens of millions of Americans who are likely to vote for President Trump will be voting against American democracy?
The more they know about what he's done, yes. The more they know about what he's done. And there's a lot more coming. He's got a lot of cases down the road coming around. He's got a whole range of issues he has to face. I don't know what the juries will do, but I do know he has a real problem. And so the fact that, could you ever think you heard any president say that I'm going to seek retribution? Do you ever hear any presidents say that I thought Hitler had some good ideas? What got me involved around the first place after my son had died, I decided in Iraq, because of Iraq, I said I wasn't going to run again until I saw what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas on torches, and singing the same anti-Semitic bile they sang when back in Germany. And the young woman got killed. I spoke to the mother, and they asked him, they said, what do you think of those people? The ones who got killed, the one who tried to stop it, and the ones, he said, I think they're fine people on both sides. What American president would ever say, Nazis coming out of fields, carrying torches, singing the same anti-Semitic bile, carrying swastikas, were fine people? And this is a guy who says Hitler's done some good things. I'd like to know what they are. The good things Hitler's done, that's what he said. This guy has no sense of American democracy.
President Trump.
Jake, both of you know that story has been totally wiped out because when you see the sentence, it said 100% exoneration on this. So he just keeps it going. He says he ran because of Charlottesville. He didn't run because of Charlottesville. He ran because it was his last chance. He's not equipped to be president. You know it, and I know it. It's ridiculous. We have a debate. We're trying to justify his presidency. His presidency is, without question, the worst president, the worst presidency in the history of our country. We shouldn't be having a debate about it. There's nothing to debate. He made up the Charlottesville story. And you'll see it's debunked all over the place. Every reasonable anchor has debunked it. And just the other day it came out where it was fully debunked. It's a nonsense story. He knows that. And he didn't run because of Charlottesville. He used that as an excuse to run.
President Biden.
And debunked. It happened. All you have to do is listen to what was said at the time. And the idea that somehow that's the only reason I ran. I ran because I was worried a guy like this guy could get elected. If he thought they were good people coming out of that forest, carrying those woods, carrying those torches, then he didn't deserve to be president. Didn't deserve to be president at all. And the idea that he's talking about all this being fabricated, we saw with our own eyes. We saw what happened on January 6th. We saw the people breaking through the windows. We saw people occupying his own vice president. Look, there's a reason why 40 of his 44 top cabinet officers refused to endorse him this time. His vice president hasn't endorsed him this time. So why? Why? They know him well. They serve with him. Why are they not endorsing him?
Thank you, President Biden. We're going to be right back with more from the CNN presidential debate.
Have another. You don't have to get a camera, but could I just show you the picture I took of you? This is amazing. Like, this is, I'm literally, I'm going to frame this. This is going to be the first frame picture. That's just her during, other things. Electionbettingodds.com tanked on Biden, and now I can't access it because so many people are going to it. I take it to you, Maestro. This is your show, and you've got the insights.
This is the worst version that I think the Biden team could imagine. This is bedtime for Bonzo.
You know,
this is like tomorrow is going to be a freak out
Yes.
the likes of which we have never seen a Democratic freakout in our lifetime. There is a very good chance that in Chicago, we're going to have an open fight for the nomination.
See, I'm beginning to think that the reason that they scheduled this now, prior to the debate, or prior to the convention, was explicitly so that if this happened, they could find another candidate to paradrop in.
It has been said that there was a dual purpose. Number one, you can change the race and you have time for it to set in, and then maybe there's only one way that he'll step down is if opinion turns against him so hard that he says, okay, I'll step back. I don't think that he will ever step back. I think that
if they play a video of the debate to him so he can see what he looks like, do you think maybe he'll step back? Because, okay, back in 2020, what I wanted, I was like, I want Biden to come in and give everybody in America Benadryl. And boy, did I just get my fucking wish. That was a lot of goddamn Benadryl. Like, how did they... I expected juiced up Biden. Like,
no,
I would have scored the guy some Adderall.
It was Sleepy Joe.
I think his dentures aren't quite attached.
Yeah.
Two sources familiar with the situation say President Biden has a cold, according to Kelly O'Donnell. So we are already in full spin mode.
Yeah.
We've reached new lows, says Michael Ware, who is an anti-Trump Republican. Ja Rule says this can't be our only choice of candidates. What the fuck? What does Ja think?
What do you think the spin's going to be like at this tomorrow?
Fucking panic.
I think this is
going to be fucking panic. I think that Democrats immediately are going to talk about whatever little thing that Trump did or did not do, but the cake is baked. Like, Biden's age was his biggest liability. It is the fulcrum of why he has fumbled his incumbent advantage, and we have just seen fucking why. Like, this is horrible. He had his two biggest power punches are democracy / January 6th and abortion. He fumbled them. You got to blister this dude.
Other thing
you got to make him bleed on that shit.
Debate live from Georgia. Let's talk about persistent challenges you both faced in your first terms, and you'd certainly face again in a second term. President Biden, while black unemployment dropped to a record low under your presidency, black families still earn far less than white families. Black mothers are still 3 times more likely to die.
Ironic that the Democrats got rid of Jamal Bowman, who pulled the fire alarm when they need him most.
5 times the rate of white Americans. What do you say to black voters who are disappointed that you haven't made more progress?
They acknowledge they made a lot of progress, number one. The fact of the matter is there's more small black businesses that have been started than any time in history. Number two, the wages of black unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long time.
He's going against
Number
it.
3,
I feel your pain, dude.
Providing housing for black Americans and dealing with the segregation that exists among these corporations that collude to keep people out of their houses. And in addition to that, we find that the impact on the choice that black families have to make relative to childcare is incredibly difficult. When we did the first major piece of legislation in the past, I was able to reduce black childcare costs. I cut them in half. We got to make sure we provide for childcare costs. We got to make sure because when you provide those childcare protections, you increase economic growth because more people can be in the job market. So there's more to be done, considerably more to be done. But we've done a great deal so far, and I'm not letting up, and they know it.
You have 49 seconds left. What do you say to black voters who are disappointed with the progress so far?
I say I don't blame them for being disappointed. Inflation is still hurting them badly. For example, I provided for the idea that any black family first-time home buyers should get a $10,000 tax credit to be able to buy their first home so they can get started. I made sure that we're in a situation where all those black families and those black individuals who had to take out student loans that were ballooning, that if they were engaged in nursing, anything having to do with volunteerism, if they paid their bills for 10 years on their student debt, all the rest was forgiven after 10 years. Millions have benefited from that. And we're going to do a whole lot more for black families.
Thank you, President Trump.
And he caused the inflation. He's blaming inflation, and he's right, it's been very bad. He caused the inflation, and it's killing black families and Hispanic families and just about everybody. It's killing people. They can't buy groceries anymore. They can't. You look at the cost of food where it's doubled and tripled and quadrupled. They can't live. They're not living anymore. He caused this inflation. I gave him a country with essentially no inflation. It was perfect. It was so good. All he had to do is leave it alone. He destroyed it with his Green New scam and all this money that's being thrown out the window. He caused inflation. As sure as you're sitting there, the fact is that his big kill on the black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking black jobs now, and it could be 18, it could be 19, and even 20 million people. They're taking black jobs, and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Thank you. President Biden?
There was no inflation when I became president. You know why? The economy was flat on its back. 15% unemployment.
Okay.
He decimated the economy, absolutely decimated the economy. That's why there was no inflation at the time. There were no jobs. We provided thousands of millions of jobs for individuals
It was
who were
already
in bulk
rebounding
communities,
when you
including
got
minority communities.
into the
We made
presidency.
sure that they have health insurance. We have covered, the ACA has increased. I made sure that they're $8,000 per person in a family to get written off for health care. But this guy wants to eliminate that. They tried 50 times. He wants to get rid of the ACA again, and they're going to try again if they win. You find ourselves in a position where the idea that we're not doing any, we put more police on the street than any administration has. He wants to cut the cops. We're providing for equity and making sure people have a shot to make it. There's a lot going on, but in inflation, he caused it by his tremendous malfeasance in the way he handled the pandemic.
Thank you. Another persistent challenge is the climate crisis. 2023 was the hottest year in recorded history, and communities across
Climate
the country are
change,
confronting
good
the
issue for
devastating
Biden?
effects of extreme heat.
Huh? Maybe a
intensifying
comeback,
wildfires,
Joe?
Stronger hurricanes,
Anyone?
and rising sea levels. Former President Trump, you've vowed to end your opponent's climate initiatives, but will you
feels
take
like
any
elder
action
abuse.
as president to slow the climate crisis?
Well, let me just go back to what he said about the police, how close the police are to him. Almost every police group in the nation from every state is supporting Donald J. Trump. Almost every police group. And what he's done to the black population is horrible, including the fact that for 10 years he called them super predators. We can't, in the 1990s, we can't forget that. Super predators was his name. And he called it to them for 10, and they've taken great offense at it, and now they see it happening. But when they see what I did for criminal justice reform and for the historically black colleges and universities, where I funded them and got them all funded, and the opportunity zones with Tim, as you know, Tim Scott was incredible. He did a great job, great senator from South Carolina. He came to me with the idea, and it was a great idea. It's one of the most successful economic development acts ever in the country, opportunity zones. And the biggest beneficiary are blacks. And that's why we have the best numbers with them in maybe ever. They're saying ever. I read this morning where ever, the best numbers. He's lost
Abe Lincoln
much of the black
have a word.
population because he's done a horrible job for black people. He's also done a horrible job for Hispanics. But wait till you see these millions of people pouring into our country, and they're going to take the jobs. And it's already started, and you haven't seen anything yet. It's a disaster.
You've 38 seconds left. President Trump, will you take any action as president to slow the
So
climate
she
crisis?
hits both of them
So
with the
I want
second
absolutely
thing.
immaculate clean water, and I want absolutely clean air, and we had it. We had H2O. We had the best numbers ever, and we were using all forms of energy, all forms, everything. And yet, during my 4 years, I had the best environmental numbers ever. And my top environmental people gave me that statistic just before I walked on the stage, actually.
The best H2O.
I don't know where the hell he's been. The idea that anything he said is true. I've passed the most extensive climate change legislation in history. In history, we find ourselves, and by the way, black colleges. I came up with $15 billion for HBCUs, historic black universities and colleges, because they don't have the kind of contributors that they have to build these laboratories and the like. Any black student is capable in college of doing any white student can do. They just don't have the money, but now they'll be able to get those jobs in high tech. We're in a situation where the idea that he is claiming to have done something that had the cleanest water, he hadn't done a damn thing for the environment. He pulled out of the Paris Peace Accord, Climate Accord. I immediately joined it because if we reach 1.5 degrees Celsius at any one point, there's no way back. The only existential threat to humanity is climate change. And he didn't do a damn thing about it. He wants to undo all that I've done.
The Paris Accord was going to cost us $1 trillion, and China nothing, and Russia nothing, and India nothing. It was a ripoff of the United States. And I ended it because I didn't want to waste that money because they treat us horribly. We were the only ones. It was costing us money. Nobody else was paying into it. And it was a disaster. But everything that he said just now, I'll give you an example. I heard him say before insulin. I'm the one that got the insulin down for the seniors.
CNN, can you just drop the word live from beneath Biden? I feel like you're taunting him. Keeping the word live directly beneath him.
They want everybody.
Live, Joe Biden, live.
I have the biggest heart on the stage, I guarantee you that. And I want to take care of people. But we're destroying our country. They're taking over our schools, our hospitals, and they're going to be taking over Social Security. He is destroying Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
The idea is that we, in fact, we were the only ones of consequence who were not members of the Paris Accord. How can we do anything? We're not able to, the United States can't get its under control. One of the largest polluters in the world, number one. We're making significant progress. By 2035, we will have cut pollution in half. We have made significant progress, and we're continuing to make progress. We set up a climate corps for thousands of young people who will learn how to deal with climate, just like the Peace Corps. And we're moving in directions that are going to significantly change the elements of cause of pollution. But the idea that he claims that he has the biggest heart up here and he's really concerned about pollution and about climate, I've not seen any indication of that. And by the way, with regard to prescription drugs, one company agreed that they would reduce the price to $35, which I was calling for, one, voluntarily. I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company, cannot have to pay.
Thank you.
And by the way,
so every day, millions of Americans struggle just to make ends meet. For many older Americans, Social Security provides a critical lifeline. President Biden, if nothing is done to Social Security, seniors will see their benefits cut in just over 10 years. Will you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to take to keep Social Security solvent?
yes, make the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Right now, everybody making under $170,000 pays 6% of their income, of their paycheck, every single time they get a paycheck from the time of the first one they get when they're 18 years old. The idea that they're going to, I'm proposing that everybody, they pay, the millionaires pay 1%. So no one I would not raise the cost of Social Security for anybody under $400,000. After that, I began to make the wealthy begin to pay their fair share by increasing from 1% beyond to be able to guarantee the program for life.
So you still have 82 seconds left. Are there any other measures that you think that would be able to help keep Social Security solvent, or is that one enough?
Well, no, that one enough will keep it solvent. But the biggest thing I'll do if we defeat this man, because he wants to get rid of Social Security. He thinks there's plenty to cut in Social Security. He's wanting to cut Social Security and Medicare both times. And and if you look at the program put forward by the House Republican caucus that I believe supports, is in fact want to cut it as well. The idea that we don't need to protect our seniors is ridiculous. And by the way, American public has greater health care coverage today than ever before. And on the ACA, as I said, you're in a circumstance where
It doesn't
400,000
help
people,
that he just keeps
40
talking about how
40 million
awesome things
people
are when
do not have
Americans
insurance
don't
because
think
they have a
things are
pre-existing
awesome.
Condition. The only thing that allows them to have that insurance is the fact that they, in fact, are part of the ACA. And by the way, the other thing is, we're in a situation where we talk about education for black communities. I've raised the amount of money for Pell Grants by another $8,000. So anybody making under $70,000 a year are going to be able to get $15,000 toward their tuition. He just doesn't know what he's talking
That'll lower
about.
college costs.
Thank you,
for
President
money.
Biden. President Trump.
So I've dealt with politicians all my life. I've been on this side of the equation for the last 8 years. I've never seen anybody lie like this guy. He lies. I've never seen it. He can look you in the face about so many other things, too. And we mentioned the laptop. We mentioned Russia, Ukraine. Everything he does is a lie. It's misinformation and disinformation. The losers and suckers story that he made up is a total lie on the military. It's a disgrace. But Social Security, he's destroying it because millions of people are pouring into our country, and they're putting them onto Social Security. They're putting them onto Medicare, Medicaid. They're putting them in our hospitals. They're taking the place of our citizens. What they're doing to the VA, to our veterans, is unbelievable. Our veterans are living in the street, and these people are living in luxury hotels. He doesn't know what he's doing, and it's really coming back. I've never seen such anger in our country before.
President Biden.
The idea that veterans are not being taken care of, I told you before. And by the way, when I said suckers and losers, he acknowledged after that he fired that general. That general got fired because he's the one that acknowledged that that's what he said. He was the one standing with Trump.
Is this whole
when
thing
he
going to
said
just
it.
pivot around
Number
whether
one. Number two,
that statement's true or
the
not?
idea that we're going to
I don't
be
know
in a
why he
situation
keeps
where
going back to that.
all these millions and millions.
He
of
shouldn't have
talks about
used it. It doesn't
illegal
fucking
aliens
matter.
are coming into the country and
Not as a
taking away
central
our
point, at
jobs.
least.
There's a reason why we have the fastest growing economy in the world. The reason why we have the most successful economy in the world. We're doing better than any other nation in the world.
The worst
And by the
talking
way,
point.
those
The
15
worst.
Nobel laureates he talked about being phony, those 15 Nobel laureates,
It's actually
economists,
16.
they all said that if Trump is reelected,
I'm
we're likely
so
to have a
happy that he
recession,
brought it up.
and inflation is going to increasingly go up. And by the way, worst president in history, 159 presidential scholars voted him the worst president in the history of the United States of America.
President Biden, thank you so much. Let's turn to the cost of child care, which many American families struggle to afford. President Trump, both you and President Biden have tried to address this issue, but the average cost of child care in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child. For many families, the cost of child care for 2 children is more than their rent. In your second term,
Trump
what
on
would you
offense.
do to make child care more affordable?
Just to go back, the general got fired because he was no good. And if he said that, that's why he made it up. But we have 19 people that said I didn't say it, and they're very highly respected, much more so than him. The other thing is, he doesn't fire people. He never fired people. I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because he was no good. I fired a lot of the top people at the FBI, drained the swamp. They were no good. Not easy to fire people. You'd pay a price for it, but they were no good. I inherited these people. I didn't put him there. I didn't put Comey there. He was no good. I fired him. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He never fires. He should have fired every military man that was involved with that the Afghanistan horror show, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. He didn't fire. Did you fire anybody? Did you fire anybody that's on the border that's allowed us to have the worst border in the history of the world? Did anybody get fired for allowing 18 million people, many from prisons, many from mental institutions? Did you fire anybody that allowed our country to be destroyed? Joe, our country is being destroyed as you and I sit up here and waste a lot of time on this debate. This shouldn't be a debate. He is the worst president. He just said about me because I said it. But look, he's the worst president in the history of our country. He's destroyed our country. Now all of a sudden he's trying to get a little tough on the border. He came out with a nothing deal, and it reduced it a little bit, like this much. It's insignificant. He wants open borders. He wants our country to either be destroyed or he wants to pick up those people as voters. And I don't think we just can't let it happen. If he wins this election, our country doesn't have a chance, not even a chance, of coming out of this rut. we probably won't have a country left anymore. That's how bad it is. He is the worst in history by far.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
We're the most admired country in the world. We're the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity. We have the finest military in the history of the world, the finest in the history of the world. No one thinks we're weak. No one wants to screw around with us. Nobody. Number one.
If he said
Number
fuck
two,
around,
the
I actually
idea
think it's scoring
that
points.
We're talking about worst presidents. I wasn't joking. Look it up. Go online.
Why are you
150
fighting
million,
about
58,
this?
Don't hold me the exact number.
Bring up
Presidential
abortion.
historians, they've had meetings and they voted who's the worst president in American history. One through best to worst. They said he was the worst in all of American history. That's a fact. That's not conjecture.
Oh my God.
You can argue they're wrong, but that's what they voted. The idea that he is doing anything to deal with child care, he did virtually nothing to child care. We should significantly increase the child care tax credit. We should significantly increase the availability of women and men or single parents to be able to go back to work. And we should encourage businesses to have.
Thank you, President
childcare
Biden.
facilities.
President Trump, the question was about what would you do to make child care more affordable, if you want to take your minute.
Just so you understand, we have polling, we have other things that they rate him the worst because what he's done is so bad.
Get off it. Get off
They
it.
rate me, I'll show you, I will show you. And they rate me one of the best, okay? And if I'm given another 4 years, I will be the best. I think I'll be the best. Nobody's ever created an economy like us. Nobody ever cut taxes like us. He's the only one I know. He wants to raise your taxes by 4 times. He wants to raise everybody's taxes by 4 times. He wants the Trump tax cuts to expire. So everybody, including the two of you, are going to pay 4 to 5 times. Nobody ever heard of this before. All my life, I'd grow up and I'd see politicians talking about cutting taxes. When we cut taxes, as I said, we did more business. Apple and all these companies, they were bringing money back into our country. The worst president in history by far, and everybody knows it.
President Biden?
Look, the fact of the matter is that he's dead wrong about. He's increased the tariff. He will increase the taxes on middle-class people. I said I'd never raise a tax on anybody making less than $400,000. I didn't. But this tariff is 10% tariffs.
There you go.
Everything coming into the country, you know what the economists say? That's going to cost the average American $2,500 a year more because they're going to have to pay the difference in food and all the things that are very important. Number two, he's in a situation where he talks about how he has not raised, he somehow helped the middle class. The middle class have been devastated by you. Now you want a new tax cut of $5 trillion over the next 10 years, which is going to fundamentally bankrupt the country. You had the largest deficit of any president in American history, number one. Number two, you have not, in fact, made any contact, any progress with China. We are the lowest trade deficit with China since 2010.
Thank you, President Biden.
You lost.
Thank you, President Biden. Let's discuss an epidemic impacting millions of Americans that both of you have made a top priority.
Still got another
in your first term. The opioid
commercial
crisis.
break. Although I guess
For
that's
both
with
of you,
the
number
closing statements.
of overdose deaths in this country has gone up.
And will
Under
no
your
doubt go
term,
further
it went
up after
Under
tonight's
your
debate.
term, it has gone up. Former President Trump, despite the efforts that both of you have made, more than 100,000 Americans are dying from overdoses every year, primarily from fentanyl and other opioids. What will you do to help Americans right now in the throes of addiction who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
To finish up?
Yep.
We now have the largest deficit in the history of our country under this guy. We have the largest deficit with China. He gets paid by China. He's a Manchurian candidate. He gets money from China. So I think he's afraid to deal with them or something. But do you notice he never took out my tariffs because we bring in so much money with the tariffs that I imposed on China. He never took them away. He can't because it's too much money. It's tremendous. And we saved our steel industries, and there was more to come, but he hasn't done that. But he hasn't cut the tariffs because he can't, because it's too much money. But he's got the largest deficit in the history of our country, and he's got the worst situation with China. China's going to own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing to us as a country. They are killing us as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
So, President Trump, you have 67 seconds left. The question was, what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction right now who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
Jake, we were doing very well at addiction until the COVID came along. We had the 2.5, almost 3 years of like nobody's ever had before, any country, in every way. And then we had to get tough. And it was the drugs pouring across the border it started to increase. We got great equipment. We bought the certain dog that's the most incredible thing that you've ever seen, the way they can spot it. We did a lot. And we were getting very low numbers, very, very low numbers. Then he came along. The numbers, have you seen the numbers now? It's not only the 18 million people that I believe is even low because the gotaways, they don't even talk about gotaways. But the numbers of the amount of drugs and human trafficking in women coming across our border, the worst thing I've ever seen, at numbers that nobody's ever seen under him because the border's so bad. But the number of drugs coming across our border now is the largest we've ever had by far.
President Trump, thank you. President Biden?
Fentanyl and the byproducts of fentanyl went down for a while. And I wanted to make sure we use the machinery that can detect fentanyl, these big machines that roll over everything that comes across the border. And it costs a lot of money. That was part of this deal we put together, this bipartisan deal. More fentanyl machines, more be able to detect drugs, more numbers of agents, more numbers of all the people at the border. And when we had that deal done, he called his Republican colleagues, said, don't do it. It's going to hurt me politically. No, he never argued it's not a good bill. It's a really good bill. We need those machines. We need those machines. And we're coming down very hard in every country in Asia in terms of precursors for fentanyl. And Mexico is working with us to make sure they don't have the technology to be able to put it together. That's what we have to do. We need those machines.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, and again, the question is about Americans in the throes of addiction right now, struggling to get the treatment they need.
Well, because this does pertain to it. He ended Remain in Mexico. He ended catch and release. I made it catch and release in Mexico, not catch and release here. We had so many things that we had done, hard negotiations with Mexico, and I got it all for nothing. It's just like when you have a hostage. We always pay $6 billion for a hostage. Every time we say it's a hostage. Now we have a hostage, the Wall Street Journal reporter, I think a good guy, and he's over there because Putin is laughing at this guy, probably asking for billions of dollars for the reporter. I will have him out very quickly as soon as I take office. Before I take office, I said by literally as soon as I win the election, I will have that reporter out. He should have had him out a long time ago.
Ukraine settled,
but Putin's probably
and the Wall
asking
Street
for
Journal
billions
reporter
of
was going to get
billions
his
of
full
dollars
second
because
term
this guy
done
pays
before
it
he's
every
sworn
time.
in.
We had 2 cases. We paid $6 billion for 5 people. I got 58 people out, and I paid essentially nothing.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
Let's turn to concerns that voters have about each of you. President Biden, you would be 86 at the end of your second term. How do you address
I would have never guessed
about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world well into your 80s?
Well, first of all, I spent half my career being criticized being the youngest person in politics. I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate, and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent. I think that just look at the record. Look at what I've done. Look how I've turned around the horrible situation he left me. As I said, 15 million new jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs, more investment in America, over billions of dollars in private investment in enterprises that we are growing. By the way, we brought an awful lot of people. The whole idea of computer chips, we used to have 40% of the market. We invented those chips, and we lost it because he was sending people to find the cheapest jobs overseas and to bring home a product. So I went to South Korea. I convinced Samsung to invest billions of dollars here in the United States. And guess what? Those fabs, they call that to build these chips, those fabs pay over $100,000. You don't need a college degree for them. And there's billions, about $40 billion already being invested and being built right now in the United States, creating significant jobs for Americans from all over the world.
President Biden, you have 40 seconds left. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I would. The idea that somehow we are this failing country. I never heard a president talk like this before. we're the envy of the world. Like, name me a single major country president who wouldn't trade places with the United States of America for all our problems and all our opportunities. We're the most progressive country in the world in getting things done. We're the strongest country in the world. We're a country in the world who keeps our word, and everybody trusts us, all of our allies.
Everything's great.
Those who he calls
Everything's great.
Kim Jong-un, he sends love letters to, and Putin, et cetera. They don't want to screw around with us.
Thank you. Former President Trump, to follow up, you would be 82 at the end of your second term. What do you say to voters who have concerns about your capabilities to serve?
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like, go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it. But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year. And, you know, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that,
fucking great answer.
You have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape as I was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced them. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy when he was White House doctor. And then I took another one, a similar one. And one of them said they've never seen anybody ace him.
Thank you.
God.
President Biden?
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds.
God, he fucked up
he
his
said
joke
6'4",
line.
200. Well, anyway, that's what anyway. Just take a look at what he says he is, and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. The reason I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf with you if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie. That he's a 6 handicap.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I have, you know,
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Okay, President Trump, we're going to
Let's not act like children.
You are a
Let's not act like children.
voters have about you.
Let me hit him with a let's not act like children.
Once all legal challenges have been exhausted, that you will accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins, and you will say right now that political violence in any form is unacceptable.
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that. It's totally unacceptable. And if you would see my statements that I made on Twitter at the time, and also my statement that I made in the Rose Garden, you would say it's one of the strongest statements you've ever seen. In addition to the speech I made in front of, I believe, the largest crowd I've ever spoken to, and I will tell you, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about a relatively small number of people that went to the Capitol, and in many cases were ushered in by the police. And as Nancy Pelosi said, it was her responsibility, not mine. She said that loud and clear.
This is a big misstep, and if Biden were awake, boy, would he make him pay
I want
for
that
it.
more than anybody. And I'll tell you something. I wish he was a great president, because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment because I wouldn't have been his political opponent, because he indicted me because I was his opponent. I wish he was a great president. I would rather have that. I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being here. But the only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make
God,
America
look at what his
great again.
face.
We're gonna
Why
make
are you
America
looking
great again.
down?
We're a failing nation.
What is
right
wrong
now.
with
We're a
your
seriously
face?
failing nation. And we're a failing nation because of him. His policies are so bad. His military policies are insane. They're insane. These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World War III than anybody can imagine. We are very, very close to World War III, and he's driving us there. And Kim Jong-un and President Xi of China, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him. They don't fear him. They have nothing going with this gentleman, and he's going to drive us into World War III.
You want a World War III, let him follow and win, and let Putin say, do what you want, NATO. Just do what you want. There's a thing called Article 5. An attack on one is an attack
just
on
gonna
all.
repeat his
An
talking
required
point.
response. The idea The idea. I can't think of a single major leader in the world who wouldn't trade places with the job I've done and what they've done. Because we are a powerful nation.
He's on
we have wonderful people. It's because of the people.
He's on memory.
Not me. It's because of the American people. They're capable
He's
of anything.
not here.
They step up when they're needed. And right now, we're needed. We're needed to protect the world because our own safety is at stake. And again, you want to have a war, just let Putin go ahead and take Kyiv, make sure they move on, see what happens in Poland, Hungary, and other places along that border. Then you have a war.
President Trump, as I come back to you for a follow-up, the question was, will you accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins?
Just to finish what he said, if I might, Russia, they took a lot of land from Bush. They took a lot of land from Obama and Biden. They took no land, nothing from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do it. He's not going to play games with me. He knew that. I got along with him very well, but he knew not to play games. He took nothing from me. But now he's going to take the whole thing from this man right here. That's a war that should have never started. It would have never started ever with me. And he's going to take Ukraine. And, you know, you asked me a question before, would you do this? He's got us in such a bad position right now with Ukraine and Russia because Ukraine's not winning that war. He said, I will never settle until such time. They're running out of people. They're running out of soldiers. They've lost so many people. It's so sad. They've lost so many people, and they've lost those gorgeous cities with the golden domes that are 1,000 years old, all because of him and stupid decisions. Russia would have never attacked if I were
President Trump,
president.
the question was, will you accept the results of the election, regardless of who wins? Yes or no, please.
If it's a fair and legal and good election, absolutely. I would have much rather accepted these. But the fraud and everything else was ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it
before
in a
he
week.
gets to things
we'll
that
have
would
another
be
one of these
very
in a
damaging.
week. But
these are bad
I will
answers for him.
absolutely. There's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that than I'm running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job he did. He's destroying our country. I would be very happy to be someplace else, in a nice location someplace. And again, no indictments, no political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people understand it.
Well, let's see what your numbers are when this election is over. Let's see. You're a whiner. When you lost the first time, you continued, you appealed and appealed to courts all across the country. Not one single court in America said any of your claims had any merit, state or local. None. But you continue to provoke this lie about somehow there's all this misrepresentation, all this stealing. There is no evidence of that at all. And I tell you what, I doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a whiner. The idea if you lose again, you accepting anything, you can't stand the loss. Something snapped in you when you lost the last time.
We'll be right back with more from the CNN presidential debate, live from Georgia.
So I think it's 50-50.
Yeah, it's really kind of a toss-up. It's hard to tell. The great thing is America can't lose, you know? You're going with platinum and gold.
I just want to read some quotes from a repeat guest. I don't know if he wants these opinions on the air. This is 25th Amendment bad. He needs to step down from the election and possibly the office. I can't believe he can do the job for another week, let alone 4 years.
Yeah, so I mentioned this earlier, but the weird thing about this is if you were reading a transcript, Biden's doing okay, and Trump is evading questions. But if you're watching...
Are we
no one's reading a transcript. In answer to your next question.
No. Are we doing the transcript with the ums, ahs, buts, and ellipses? No. So we're cleaning that up.
You're cleaning up, If you're just getting the content.
We're cleaning up. We're cleaning up words.
The optics are not good. Because there are coherent statements that are coming out of Biden, but they're all low energy, mumbly. He's maybe emphasized something three times.
It's pre-rehearsed shit. It's pre-rehearsed shit. He's been rehearsing for 7 days. He's been at Camp David for 7 days doing 90-minute drills every day for 7 days. This is the best they got out of him.
This is him at game time.
Whoever gave him the drugs last time should be fired this time.
What? No, the difference is that that's not talking off the top of your head.
Reading a teleprompter, yeah.
Yes. In the place where he's fucking really comfortable. It's in Congress, right? And so he's looking at people he knows. He's fucking super amped up and jacked. The only question is really, like, how bad?
Bad enough that RFK's brainworm just went up 15 points in the polls. That's how bad this is.
Yeah,
An invertebrate might win.
RFK's brainworm just surpassed Joe Biden on election betting odds.
Yeah. I just want to do a quick reality check with you. Everyone's having similar thoughts on this, right? This isn't some weird thing where my progressive friends are going to be like, wow, Biden really won the debate.
No, I mean, the liberal side of the ledger that I can see on Twitter is mostly just saying that, well, Trump said crazier shit. Mm-hmm. Nobody is denying that this is terrible.
Yeah, most of the stuff that I'm seeing on Twitter is Trump said a bad thing, fuck Trump, but I'm not seeing anything about Biden slammed that one. I kind of want to watch the 2012 debate where he went against Paul Ryan tomorrow, just to contrast.
You don't. It's sad.
Yeah.
It's sad. The dude, he's not the same guy.
Yeah.
That man left. That man ain't here no more.
This is how bad, truly my biggest impulse from today's convention is I just want to go spend time with my father while he's in good health. That is honestly the thing that I keep thinking about is I love my dad. I just want to see him before he gets like that.
Yeah. No, enjoy the moments you have.
Yeah.
Enjoy the moments you have. There we go. 2024. As we head into our final comments, enjoy the moments you have.
As soon as the debate is over. Our live simulcast continues from Atlanta in just a moment.
All right, this is we're not back yet. I don't know what I can say.
Their closing statements as predetermined by a coin toss. We're going to begin with you, President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
We've made significant progress.
Fuck me, running.
The debacle that was left by President Trump in his last term. We find ourselves in a situation where, number one, we have to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience or anyone out watching this debate, do you think the tax system is fair? The fact is that I said nobody even making under $400,000 had a single penny increase in their taxes and will not. And if I'm reelected, that'll be the case again. But this guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit, number one. He's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic. And he finds himself in a position where he now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States of America. What I did, for example, he wants to get rid of
pitching to the heating guy.
Medicare.
Go on.
For the ability for us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies.
Taxes.
Well, guess what? We got
abortion.
We
Not
got
democracy.
It down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. No more than $2,000 for every senior, no matter how much prescription they need. You know what that did? That reduced the federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to every senior all along, it's happening now, and everybody in America. He wants to get rid of that. I'm going to make sure that we have Childcare. We're going to significantly increase the credit people have for Childcare. I'm going to make sure we do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and all the things that are causing health problems for people across the country. We're going to continue to fight to bring down inflation and give people a break.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, you now have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Like so many politicians, this man is just a complainer. He said, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax, that tax. But he doesn't do anything. All he does is make our country unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened. Iran was broke. Anybody that did business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror, no money whatsoever. Again, Ukraine should have never happened. He talks about all this stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We have the Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting all over the place. You talk about Charlottesville. This is 100 times Charlottesville, 1,000 times. The whole country is exploding because of you, because they don't respect you, and they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world. What we did was incredible. We rebuilt the military. We got the largest tax cut in history, the largest regulation cut in history. The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations that gave jobs, but he's putting a lot of those regulations back on. All of the things that we've done, nobody's never seen anything like, even from a medical standpoint, right to try, where we can try space-age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get, when you're terminally ill, now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years.
It's like a
But you know what we did for the military
Trump.
was incredible. Choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers, instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor, can go out and get
Tweet I
themselves
just read.
fixed up.
It could be
and readied
worse.
up
At least
and
they're
take
not running
care
for
of themselves,
president.
And they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump, President Biden. Stay with us because we have full analysis of this debate. Anderson Cooper and Aaron Burnett starts now on CNN.
Well, I hope neither of the hosts shoot themselves because they look like they're about to. Best tweet so far. Proud of my work as Biden's debate coach. I hope he followed my winning strategy. Talk about important policies the same way you describe a weird dream. Too bad I'm on a road with my loving family, so I can't watch tonight. Can't wait to find out how it went. No spoilers.
So as you already know, listener, I was going to do a whole episode with Heaton after the debate where we could break down the intricacies of debating and maybe bring up some historical parallels. I had been taking notes the entire time because I'd bring up clips and maybe we'd review them. Maybe we'd have different views on whether or not things went good or bad for either candidate. But no. The Friday episode of Politics, released on June 28th, is just going to be this 90-minute car crash because I do believe that historically it's very important that everybody know exactly how it went as we saw it. And this will be the final segment of that episode, Andrew Heaton. I've watched every presidential televised debate because I made a card game about it. That's the worst performance I've ever seen. And if I'm really being pressed, I've watched so many lower debates, like of governors and senators and everything. And usually with those, they start to let the loonies on. Like there's one Mike Pence debate where he's got a dude who was on Survivor that's like on stage. I'd have to get there before I got to worst televised debate performances than what we saw from the sitting president of the United States of America.
Yeah. Agree to disagree. I think he did a great job. I was kind of on the fence about both of them. I hadn't made up my mind yet, but firm leadership, steady hand. Biden really knocked it out of the park, I think. Great job, Biden.
The best thing that Donald Trump said is you don't fire anybody. And I think that he is only short in that he stopped with only people in his cabinet. Everybody in that campaign gone. Like this is now a flaming tire fire disaster. This is a sitting president of the United States who's running behind in every swing state that matters before this happened. And he came out looking like fucking Cocoon.
Yeah.
And it got worse as it went along. He ends his debate, the end point, not talking about abortion, not talking about democracy. That man didn't mention ectopic pregnancy.
That should have been the number one thing. The number one thing you say. You recklessly overturned Roe versus Wade, and what happened was now an entire generation of women, while this thing gets settled, has to deal with the reckless laws that were put in. So when you say state by state, what you really mean is that this woman has to die because you didn't have a foresight to actually settle this issue. No, none of that. Tax. When I do tax, I say, hey, tax less. The idea that this man taxes. What the fuck is even going on? He couldn't press the issues that he needs to. He was awful on the issues that he is playing defense on. He's, despite the fact that he was barely coherent, he was still stubborn about the fact that everything's going well when people are negative on the economy, they're negative on the border, they're negative on foreign relations. He's a husk. Like, I thought he was going to be a liability. This was as bad as anybody could hope. And I try to stay away from hyperbole because politics is prone to it, and I don't want to be that guy. But I gotta say, this is what's happening.
All right, so you need to understand the real games that are being played here, right? Because, like, when you're debating, you think what the debate is about is changing minds, but that's not it. It's about getting votes. That's why people will say things like, the real question is such and such, right? So Trump is not trying to win the debate. He's trying to win the election. Biden is not trying to win the debate. He's trying to live till next Thursday, and he succeeded at that. He did a bang-up job not dying.
I made a joke at the beginning of this stream that the average life expectancy of an American is 78 years old. So any expectations that people have for either of these two men starting this debate, the one thing America doesn't expect is for them to survive.
I have to
and to be totally honest, that was a joke before. I think that shit might be for real now. Like Joe Biden's team in the middle of this debate had to fucking message that he had a cold. Like, that is so humiliating. That is so humiliating.
Because if he had a cold, he'd be dead.
Well, and also, if he really had a cold, they would have said it before. They would have said 2 days ago, he's dealing with the flu. Joe Biden is dealing with the flu.
Been tirelessly working with the people.
And then it would have been, if he's good, it would have been better.
I have to revise my analogy. So back in 2020, when we were covering this, Justin, my analogy for that election was America has the choice between going on a train that gets lost or going on a train that hits cows for fun. And I now have to revise this to a train that hits cows for fun and a train that is just not going anywhere. Those are your options. A train that's going to stay at the platform and a train hitting cows for fun. Which one you want?
Tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I'm going to be very excited about a world in which the Democrats now have a real question on who they're going to run.
Mm-hmm.
For right now, I am mourning the idea that I thought there was going to be content that I could pick through. I can't pick through that. I can't pick through the fact that every time Donald Trump started talking, Joe Biden looked at him with a gap-mouthed look that made it look like he was about to shit himself. Like, this is... And look, I know we're going to release this unedited, so apologies to everybody who normally listens with their kids. This is obviously not a normal episode, but I'm going to put it out unedited because that's just, it needs, this is now a historical document. Yeah. We've never seen
the very
anything that
last
bad.
Election in American history. People will really want to know what precipitated the final presidency.
CNN, he's negative for COVID.
Good to know.
Multiple sources say that Joe Biden is negative for COVID. He just has a cold.
Uh-huh.
More neurons. Should I stop?
Yeah, stop the recording. I don't really know if there's much more to say about what happened. Trump was whatever. He was less
early on. You could just see in Trump's eyes, I got this. Like, Trump didn't ever have to go into full gear.
No.
He why would he? Why make himself look bad? He was able to do that on a Trump spectrum in a reasonably restrained way, which is to say that it was limited to extreme hyperbole and a few character attacks, but nothing that was like, where they had to cut him off or throw water balloons at him or drop slime from the ceiling or anything. And he, I think, clearly knew early on, like, oh, I've got this. This is going to be
Oh my God. All right. So Van Jones apparently on CNN has already said that he's about to cry. Matt Drudge. And let me say, I don't even know if Matt Drudge still runs the Drudge Report based on the general element of how they've conducted themselves. The Drudge Report has become a very anti-Trump website in a way that they were not in 2016. That being said, if Matt Drudge is still alive and is still running this website, the fact that he has supported Joe Biden for the last 4 years, and now this is the headline: Operation Replace Biden. Dems scramble with 130 days to go. Debate catastrophe. That says it all. This is not your dad's Drudge Report. This is not like go after Clinton Drudge Report. He hates Trump. That's where we're at right now. I don't know. There's, me. I love nothing more than to dissect the nuances of these things. I will find the rhetorical element of the most mundane bullshit. We're not there.
No,
this was a meltdown.
Having been Justin's co-pilot on the previous election during these similar debates, this was like watching a man really excited about a boxing match go to the boxing match and have one of the guys piss himself and then fall over.
Yeah.
And going like, well, like it's a good death blow, but could we have at least had like half an hour of action before that? Like you were probably disappointed in that, like you wanted at least a couple of hits.
You want to know what? You're right. And I am right now calling for a federal law that mandates a knockout rule for presidential debates. We cannot see this again. There needs to be an independent team that says, you want to know what? Waves it off, white towel gets thrown in. Like,
I'm going to say 20% chance that China fucking invades Taiwan tomorrow after watching
Right?
that. Like that was
Why wouldn't you?
If you're an authoritarian regime, just like invade Ireland, do whatever you want.
Let me check. Babylon B, Trump indicted for murdering elderly man. I mean, look,
I do hope that tomorrow the fact checkers are really preoccupied with the golf shit. Like, I hope that that's like, just like fact checkers, listen, there's a lot to work your way through here. And honestly, no one's going to give a fuck. No one's going to pay attention to any of the fact checking. Like, we're so far beyond that. Really, do yourself a favor, take a half day, find out what the actual handicaps are for both of these men in golf. Frankly, I think, like, given the fact that Trump lives on a fucking golf course, he's probably good at it. But just like focus on that. Don't kill yourself.
There's
it's not worth
zero chance that Joe Biden is as good at golf as Donald Trump. Donald Trump plays golf like every day. Joe Biden bikes. That's his thing. You should challenge him to a bike ride. He's for an 81-year-old, he's apparently a really avid biker. I hope to bike as much as Joe Biden at 81.
If he ever falls off, he will die. So he has a lot of motivation to keep
He's
going.
already done it once, so at least he has 8. Yeah. Oh, there was a video about it. No, that was actually so Donald Trump's campaign bought 2 ads that are airing right now on CNN. One is a more substantive, Joe Biden failed the country kind of thing. The other is, no matter what Joe Biden promised, remember this, and it's all the times that he's fallen down or stumbled. Wasted money, because nothing will be as bad as what we just saw.
I think they're gonna yank him. Do you? I mean, like, this is we're getting into
we're getting
wild speculation, but I think we're in wild speculation territory.
If we're in wild speculation territory. Who's they? The they is the 25th Amendment, which would be a stain on the Democratic Party for a generation. A party 25th Amendmenting currently up president.
As an American, by the way, happy to invoke that on both presidential candidates and just reboot from the beginning this cycle.
Understood. And I think by polling, you'd probably be in the majority. Anybody involved in the Biden campaign would never work in politics again. Anybody involved in the Democratic Party would never work in politics again if he gets 25th Amendment. That's out, right? So now you are relying on anybody that Joe Biden respects. So like everybody that he's been friends with since the Senate.
Who's still alive.
Maybe, yeah, exactly. I guess maybe you can hologram Tip O'Neill. Like
you get,
imagine Joe Biden.
Somebody's great-great-grandson.
He wakes up, hologram Tip O'Neill. Joe, you need to step down. He's like, oh, Tip.
Joe, it's time you moved on. The force is strong with you, but you need to make room for younger apprentices, Joe.
I don't know who could tell him that hasn't probably already tried to.
Well, this is my theory.
To step down.
My theory is that
Jill doesn't want to.
The people directly around him don't want to lose their access and clout and all those other things.
Yes.
And I think that some of them might be going, maybe it's time we took the keys away.
People are saying Obama. What do you think he did in 2016? He told him not to run in 2016. He picked Hillary over his own vice president.
That had been the deal, though, right? Back in 2012, 2008 or whatever, hadn't there already been kind of a handshake agreement?
Fuck no.
Okay.
No. It was the natural move for Obama to make Biden his George H.W. Bush. Like, that would have been the easy thing.
Yeah.
He didn't believe in Biden so much, and now it's settled down on, he believed the polls. Bullshit. If Obama really thought that Biden was the dude, he would have thought that he could be on the stump and make up for whatever the polls were. He could sell a third Obama term. He didn't believe in Biden. So you're going to tell him now that he won, stop running? No. Joe Biden will say, like, that's what they're saying. That's what they're saying. But come on, you're not going to elect this guy. Trump, January 6th.
The idea
that somebody would elect Trump.
Okay, so another question for you, Justin.
CNN saying that Dems are in aggressive panic.
Yes. So this is my question.
It is the purge.
At Biden HQ, what do you think's going on right now? Because I'm going to give different scenarios that I want people to contemplate. Scenario one, dead fucking silence. Just dead fucking silence. And then somebody wanders up to Biden and says, real zinger there in the middle, sir. Just dead silence. Option two, multiple people vomiting into buckets. Option three, everyone on cell phones texting Gavin Newsom if he's looking for anybody. Or option four, whatever you think.
Gavin Newsom is, you'd be able to hang a coat on his dick right now.
Yes.
Like that is.
He is
Gavin
not. He is not going to need any Viagra to fuck somebody else's wife this evening.
Gavin Newsom's middle name is to mess it.
Yeah.
But I mean, no, really, it's the conversations with Biden right now are. But you did great considering you had a cold. Considering you had a cold.
I had a cold, man?
Considering...
that explains a lot. Yeah, I had a cold.
Yeah, considering you had a cold, blah, blah, blah. The inside, it's a jockey. It's a jockeying. It's the Kamala people saying, it's time. Let's pull the trigger. Let's let the
Not
old man
literally.
go out. Yeah, no. Figuratively, although it'd be cleaner if you got assassinated. I'm not saying anybody should, but if somebody with a red hat shot him, boy, would it be a lot better.
You don't want to do this on air.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if in a crazy world, somebody with a red hat who said, this is for Don, did it, then that would be cleaner, right? That's what Kamala's saying. This is all satire.
All satire. This is all satire, people. Yeah.
No, this is all satire. This is me putting myself into the mind of a sociopathic politician.
Mm-hmm.
But it's Kamala. Yeah. Kamala saying this is the time where Joe Biden can say, yeah, you want to know what? My team came out and said I had a cold, but I'll tell you the real truth. My doctor told me literally while I was preparing for this debate, so it was inappropriate for me to say anything, that I've got Schmergelsberg disease. And it's the same thing that Bo died of. And so I still feel confident, but I am going to have to resign the presidency effective immediately. Kamala is now the sitting president. She is the first black president. And while I
black
think
woman president,
black woman,
but he'll say black president.
Yeah. Well,
the first articulate, clean cut black
president.
Sorry,
the Schmergelsberg.
Yeah.
That's I know that the American people will understand that she should be reelected in November. That's what they're going to push for him to say. I don't believe God himself could come down from heaven and tell Joe Biden to not be president, and he would listen.
I don't know. I got to say the optics weren't great tonight. They weren't that good. You know? No.
Yeah.
So there was a Portuguese president for life dictator character named Salazar, and Salazar, in the twilight of Portuguese fascism.
By the way, Politico, Biden bombs, Trump pounces. Please keep going.
Salazar had a stroke and was not expected to live. So the rubber stamp parliament in Portugal at that time convened in Lisbon and went, all right, let's just become a democracy. Like, the old strong man's dying. When he's dead, we're going to fully transition over. We're going to be a democracy. And then he pulled through, surprised everybody. So what Portugal did, and this is brilliant, Portugal just escorted him to a vacation house elsewhere in Portugal and proceeded to let him think he was president for the remainder of his life. They would have aides come in and give him paperwork, and he would go, bomb Madrid. And they go, oh, yes, sir, we did that. And for the last 2 years of Salazar's life, he believed he was president. He might have been titular president, but he had no connection politically to anything going outside of that. And just
I'm really glad you told that story, because I couldn't remember the dude's name, but I wanted to say, just tell him, well, hey, Trump said that he would forgo the election, but you have to beat him in a driving contest. Now, he refuses to be on the same golf course with you, so you just have to keep driving every day, and we'll tell you what he does. And then just let him hit golf balls from now until the end.
Oh, is that what a driving contest is? I thought they were going to, race cars. I was actually kind of excited about that, of just giving these two old men car keys and, giving them, just letting them loose. You were Prince Philip would fucking run over pedestrians in the United Kingdom until finally they were like, listen, we know you're fucking the queen, but you can't drive anymore, sir. I thought it was going to be one of those things, but no, it's hitting golf balls. Okay.
Dem party official on Biden's performance, nothing good. This is chaos. This is...
I might be nominee at this rate. Yeah. I might forego the Whig Party ticket if offered. I'd think about it.
If my daughter threatens to be born during this Democratic convention, I'm gonna kick her back in.
Yeah, stuff her back in. I was planning to leave.
Kick her back.
I was planning to leave early. By the way, I was gonna go for 2 days, and I was like, I'm gonna fuck up Scotland. I think I need to rebook that ticket because Jesus Christ.
Because also, who got you?
Yeah, but is it for both? I thought it was just for. Oh, thanks, man. Yes, I should note I am now an employee of Politics. Thanks, boss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to know what your press badge says?
What?
Production assistant.
Nice. You know what? I've come full circle. I've come full circle from 2012 to now.
Oh my God. In the chat, MSNBC, the first thing I heard was comparing it to FDR's last term. A man in a wheelchair dying. A man who died in office.
The amount of weird, again, with the debate, it's not an Oxford-style debate. It's not that you've got a bunch of highly thinky people that are going to vote on who made the best points at the end. Those are a different kind of debate. A debate like this is, to some extent, spirit animals and shadows that you are casting in order to make yourself the most appealing candidate. And in terms of just the debate craft, not the veracity of the statements, not the efficacy of the policies that were proposed, just in terms of the debating, the weird lack of punches that Biden did, coupled with, okay, at one point, you could see Dana Bash, I now have to ask Biden about his age. And both of them looked so sad throughout this debate.
Yes.
This ought to be a high honor for them, and they know that they are supervising this. And Dana Bash goes, at the end of your second term, you would be 86. I believe that's it. What would you tell Americans that are concerned about your age? And he opens up with, stumbling, half my life I was the youngest person in politics. Now I'm the oldest. Okay, I think what he was doing was like an anchoring exercise where I'm going to anchor people in young. But the way it came off was, I am so fucking ancient that I could be in politics for 50 years and have that arc. And by the way, I have been in the bowels of the beast since Nixon. Like it was, and I'm sure they practiced that. And it's such a weird tact. Like the bit he had at the end, if he'd said it with gusto, where he said like, Trump is 3 years younger than me and a lot less competent. That's a good line if he delivered it well.
Spin Dash in our chat here on Twitch says you should play the debate from 2020 to see how far Joe has fallen. I think we've had enough elder abuse for this evening. We do not need any more. I legitimately feel terrible for Joe Biden. This is the greatest political humiliation I have seen in my lifetime. And I would say, as a political historian, I don't even know where you would put anything equivalent. Like at this level, with this amount of people watching, tens of millions, like with everything on the line. As a sitting president, you're not even a challenger. You're the sitting president.
Yeah.
Like, that's,
What do you think's going to happen with the polls tomorrow? Do you think? Okay. Do you think people were significantly watching this, and that's going to have a major effect?
yes, I do.
Yeah. Okay.
I do.
I do too. I do too.
Because, by the way, Joe Biden asked for it. That's the other thing. Joe Biden asked for this. He asked for this. Donald Trump was baiting him into debating. He said he was bringing a empty podium to speeches, and he was saying, I debate Joe anytime, anywhere. And then Joe Biden, in a fucking 6-second video that had 32 cuts in it, was like, hey, man, you want to debate? How about we debate? Let's go. Proposed in a pre-negotiated thing, CNN. He picked the network. He picked the location. He picked no audience. He picked mics muted. He picked everything. He picked the time, date, place, all the setting. He got everything he wanted. This was made by Joe Biden.
Jake Tapper moderated.
Like, and he built his own sarcophagus.
Yeah. I think that a lot of potentially undecided voters just watched a debate between chubby Mr. Burns and Grandpa Simpson, and chubby Mr. Burns came off a lot better. He came off it's like potentially evil, but awake and competent.
I mean, whether or not you because that's the thing, that's the reason why I can't even do a post show where we pull things and talk about it, is that it's like, what points did he even make? Like the things that I'm sure he was drilled on are the following. First and foremost, let's go from the top of what America agrees with him on to the bottom. First, abortion is a disaster right now. Roe versus Wade being overturned is very unpopular. And so
you don't really have an answer for what you're going to do aside from restore Roe, which is dumb, and I've criticized.
Oh no, there's a big switch in the White House. Do you not know this? It's a Roe switch. It's kind of like
but
it's like a circuit breaker.
But he can't touch it until he gets reelected.
Yeah,
He's currently there.
You can only activate it on the second term.
You can only activate it. That's a second term switch. They have
Yeah.
first term switches and second term switches. And so it's like he doesn't have an answer, but at least make him pay. Say you're running fucking ads in a lady in Austin that says, I went to the doctor. I had an ectopic pregnancy. They agreed with me in the hospital that my fetus was non-responsive. They told me they didn't have the legal standing to abort it. I should go home and see what happens. Guess what? She got so sick she was in a coma for 2 days. That lady was in an ad for Beto. She was in an ad for Biden. He didn't bring her up. He didn't bring up the idea, the immediate consequences of Roe versus Wade being overturned, and now all of a sudden people in red states not having.
He might have brought it up.
standing.
I just couldn't hear him or remember it. He might have said
He
something
didn't.
like that.
He didn't. So let's start there. No mention of that. In terms of democracy, the January 6th stuff, Trump owned him. Trump mentioned all of his talking points before Biden got to even his favorite speech, which he's fucked up 3 times in some speeches. So maybe it's better that he didn't do it, which is he went back to the G7 and said, America's back. And somebody said, for how long? And then the British guy said, imagine if you watched a bunch of people run into Parliament and kill a Bobby. Like, how would you think? Like, that's his favorite thing to talk about. That's in his stump speech. He doesn't even get to that. Doesn't even get to the horrors of making January 6th a definitional moment in American history. He just mumbled, stumbled, and mumbled.
He did bring it up. I mean, he did touch on it. He didn't do a great job highlighting it.
But you have to make people feel it.
Yes.
Either it's felt or it's not. And you very much pointed out, this is not Oxford style. This is not a Soho forum. This is not any version of a debate. And that's spelled out. Again, I would highlight for everybody, go back and listen to or watch, if you're a major nerd, the 1960 debate of Richard Nixon and John F. Kennedy. It explains Richard Nixon fails in that debate, not because of any of the dumb shit you've heard, but because he thinks this is an Oxford style debate, which means he's going to agree with everything that that Kennedy just said, and say, well, what I agree with is blah, 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 but, and then do the intellectual death blow of like why the things that he said was dumb and the things he didn't say are even dumber. Kennedy looks right into the camera and says, well, I believe that blah, 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 blah. Nixon thinks he's winning because he's like, well, this guy isn't even responding to me.
I've made 4 points and he's only responded to 2 of them. And Kennedy just keeps winking at the camera like he's making love to someone. That's not actual arguing. Old Dick Nixon has had a 1-2 punch in terms of Keynesian economics. He hasn't even brought up Keynesian economics. He just keeps smiling like some kind of handsome prince. Who's that going to win over?
Yeah, I fucked Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah, I mean, the initial thought, Nixon thought he was winning because he thought that JFK was coming off too sophomoric, and it would highlight his youth and inexperience. And that while they were about the same age, Nixon had spent 8 years in the White House. Anyway, you have to break the fourth wall and talk directly to the audience. Both of them did. Trump came off.
Him talking to Jake Tapper, like Jake and Dana, where he like brought up like both of you know, and like I don't know, it was compelling.
Yeah, because he seems like a asshole who would run the country. Whether or not you like how he would do it, up to you. Biden was a less responsive crypt keeper from Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah.
In fact, I would vote for the crypt keeper.
No, too many puns. Do not care for the crypt keeper. I can't. A bridge too far for
Listen to this one, kiddies.
Lots of other comedic characters I'd vote for. You know what? Would vastly have preferred.
Joe was a schmo when he walked into the hole.
Really preferred a debate between Waldorf and Astor over this. The 2 old Muppet guys debating would have been. like that for 2 hours would have been better.
Van Jones on CNN is now apparently calling for Biden to be removed.
Okay.
Van Jones has fallen.
Okay. Wow.
For the Democrats. Sir, we've lost Van.
We've lost Van.
That somebody has to tell Joe Biden that right now. Sorry. Somebody has to write a note and leave it under Joe Biden's pillow right now.
Okay. Another question. Truthfully, what do you think Biden and Trump are doing right now? Like right now?
Trump is right now at the $25,000 and up donor dinner that was planned for after the debate. And everybody is just chest bumping like they won the Super Bowl. Like it is an absolute bacchanalia. Like J.D. Vance is doing the worm. Glenn Youngkin is doing...
Tim Scott snorting cocaine in the bathroom.
Tim Scott's like, well, I've never tried it, but... Like... it is an absolute fest. It is Bonnaroo in that wherever that's happening in downtown Atlanta. Biden, it's.
Do you think he's awake right now?
Here's the Hitler, the famous Hitler clip, the downfall one. Where everybody's too scared to talk to him,
right?
And then they're like, and they put the fake lines down below. It's that they're all like, we're seeing notes now that
Van Jones is
whites in Michigan loved it, 65 and up. So we got something to build on. And then there might be somebody who's like Van Jones has fallen. And then Biden will do the Hitler like, and then start yelling. That's it. It's downfall. It is the Hitler clip from Downfall. That's what Biden is right now.
So you do think he's awake? Because I'm not. I think he might be asleep in a limo right now.
All right. Well,
he's gonna wake up tomorrow and go, man, I had a weird dream. When's the debate? Is that tonight? I need to do some push-ups. I had this weird dream where I talked about golf a lot, man. Man, it was weird. Okay, where's Jill? Let's do this debate.
All right. Movie pitch. Joe Biden, current. He wakes up, and now he is in a rush before Election Day to figure out time travel to go back.
Which would be a better use of America's time to watch than the spectacle that we just witnessed in terms of joy.
Heaton, where can people find you?
Hey, I host the Political Orphanage. It is a show for people that are neither enamored with blue team or red team. I'm going to be spending a significant amount of this evening figuring out how the hell I'm going to tackle this one. I have an idea on what I'm going to do. I'm not going to mention it just yet, but I've got an idea. But yeah, check me out on the Political Orphanage. Delighted to be back. Justin and I did this throughout the twilight days of 2020, back when America still had a little bit of hope. And watched one of the debates and watched the election night roll in. And good to be back on the program in the last year.
It was an honor to witness history with you.
Yeah. And
that was history.
Now it kind of feels like you and I are the band on the Titanic that is playing our tunes out as we slowly submerge into the Atlantic.
But our Patreon jars are full. We will die rich. All right. Hot take from Jen. Do we want to call Jen?
Yeah, call Jen.
All right, hold on. Call Jen Briney. Let's see if she picks up.
Justin.
Hi, Jen. You're on the air before you say anything. But the chat room was desperate and thirsty for your thoughts on what just happened.
I thought Biden absolutely crushed it.
Yeah, see, I agree. This is us living in an echo chamber.
Many
Thanks,
people
Jen.
are saying.
Yeah.
People are saying.
No, he nailed it. It was like Raging Bull with silver hair, just a mastodon of a man in his prime.
Yeah, it was a perfect debate. No, obviously it was a fucking disaster. I can't believe what I just witnessed. Yeah, I have like 2 pages of notes, and they're all basically saying, "Oh my god."
Yeah, are they all just an exclamation mark and a question mark next to the other one?
Just so you know, I was going to do a whole show where we just went over moments from the debate so we could break it down, and I just spiked it. We're just going to run the entire live stream because it is now a historical document, the worst debate performance in American history.
I mean, honestly, I wasn't expecting much to change from this, but this seems like a pretty big deal.
Yeah, Van Jones has called for Biden to step down or at least not run.
Be removed. Yeah.
And Gavin Newsom has been hospitalized for a 6-hour erection.
Exactly, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't good, man, because you had, all the Biden stuff on one side, but then you had Trump with the pathological lying. Like, he wasn't even trying to make his lies believable. So it was just this juxtaposition of awful.
I mean, look, Donald Trump could have fell asleep. It wouldn't have mattered. Like that, the Biden, from the moment he walked out on stage and as soon as he opened his mouth with that weird voice, like he had a voice that made RFK said, "What the fuck's up with that dude's voice?"
It was very ASMR. Like, was he trying to make us all go to sleep? It was, don't tell me it's a fucking cold.
Oh, I know, right? They had to rush that out before the first commercial break. Like, that's how pathetic it was.
And I haven't been dialed in today. Were they saying he had a cold?
Fuck no. It was only when it started going sideways. Like, because if they wanted to message that, they would have messaged that at the beginning of the day. They were trying to make up for the fact that he was terrible.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, and like, obviously the age is a problem. And when they asked him the question straight up, like, what do you tell people who are concerned about your age? Good answers would have been, yeah, I'm older, but I have great people around me. I'm constantly in touch with my doctors. Like, I assure you, if I'm diagnosed with anything, I'll resign. Like,
We're just
he instead refused to acknowledge it.
No, a good answer politically is like I'm old, or Reagan. Well, I for one will refuse to exploit my opponent's youth and inexperience. Like a joke about the fact that everybody knows you're fucking old.
How could they wait? Hold on. How could they have possibly prepared for that though?
I used to be the youngest, which means I've been in Washington D.C. for 100 years.
It's like, did you think I was old? Let me explain exactly every course of my varicose veins.
Yeah, I've been in the Senate longer than most of you have been alive. Like, I don't think that was the answer America was looking for, bro.
All right. Well, there we go. We got Jen on the show. We'll have plenty to talk about on Wednesday, but I think it'll probably be more than just the debate.
I think so too. I mean, at least the DNC just got a whole lot more interesting.
Ooh, I mean, we might be actually at 1968.
I know. Now I'm excited.
All right. Talk to you. Bye.
Have a good night. Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jen Briney of Congressional Dish. And that'll be it for us. What a night. I can't believe what we just saw. And if you've been a listener to this show, you know that being short for words is not something that happens to me very often, but Jesus. Till next time, this is your old pal Justin Robert Young saying some shows talk about politics, some shows talk about politics, and some shows talk about what just happened. But this is the only show that dares talk about all three. See you later.